Hey guys, looks like we're live and ready to go. Just gonna move my stuff over here a little bit, get us all set to go. Seeing who's out there. Oh, we see Florida so far. I'm in Maryland. We got more snow. I was keeping track of my last trip that I did this past weekend for teaching, and I was up in Connecticut, and they got tons of snow up there, and it was kind of starting just as I left this weekend. So came home to a little bit of snow here, maybe like 6 inches, but it's already sunny out today. Mostly starting to melt already. It'll be gone by tomorrow. So hopefully the rest of you out there the storms all should be over. Hopefully you're cozy and warm and have power. We lost power yesterday for a while too. So today, I'm Ajaire Perello. I'm here to finish up this really neat backpack that we started last month. We're doing a Sew Together live with bags. We do those the fourth Tuesday of every month. So I'm here again to finish the bag. We're doing the Veda backpack. That's from Little Lizard King. I love her patterns. She does a great job, a lot of attention to details, and she's got a few accessories that are really, really great. So I thought that it would work great with the Quilting Cuddle. And I'm using this Whispering Blooms collection. This is the Whispering Blooms in the purple colorway. I mean, I cannot even get over how gorgeous these look together. So that's one of the prints in the collection, and it's paired with Bellflower, which is one of the solids, all Quilting Cuddle. We went over all this last time, but I did just do a very simple gridded quilting pattern on this piece to add a little extra texture there. She gives you a ton of options in the pattern, so you can kind of make everything your own. And I like that she goes through, before you even start, there's a whole section where you can take the pattern and just kind of put pieces here and there and figure out which piece you want to use. She gives different pattern pieces for whether you're going to want to do binding with vinyl or binding with a woven fabric. So things like the edges being turned under, which is great for us because with Cuddle, we know the raw edge doesn't fray, so we can treat Cuddle sometimes like a vinyl would, where you're not turning it under. So all those little details I love. So anyway, we finished this part last time. I'm just going to catch us up a little bit while we're waiting for everybody to come on. This is the front. This is going to be the front of the bag, and there's this big front pocket. Remember, my lining is going to be this leaf color that's also in the collection, and I just thought I love green, and I think the green with the pops of purple in this go great with this print. So the whole lining is going to be green. So this is just the front pocket there. We put a magnetic snap in here. Did all that part. We also did, when you open the backpack, this first zipper that comes open here, what's going to be attached to the back of this front piece is another interior pocket. So we did this last time as well. This is that gorgeous leaf color. And we made that pocket. And if you'll recall, we left the bottom edge of the pocket open because we are going to do the flipping the backpack in through itself to like seal it all up. Instead of doing a binding on the inside, we're going to stitch the lining to the main and then pull it all out through this opening, which is why we left this open. She does also give you the option to use a binding if you want to connect the whole thing together. So I think you guys are all caught up. I'm going to be able to see some of your comments here. Ginger is in the background in case I'm, not paying super close attention to the comments. And so she's there to shout some things out if I'm missing anything. So feel free to ask questions if you have any as we go through this process. If you missed that first part, it's out on YouTube. It's all of our lives are always saved out on YouTube. Go to Shannon Fabric's YouTube page and just search there's a little live category. Go through there and you can see the entire first part. We did a couple hours worth of getting through that first part of the bag. Someone mentioned the zippers. So this is just a fun zipper. That's what's cool too, is that with this pattern, you can use zipper tapes. So I didn't get a regular zipper. I just got some zipper yardage. I get some zipper tape, and then we attach whatever kind of zipper pulls we want to. So I used this cute one here. I thought that was fun. We're going to use all sorts of fun little buckles and stuff in this project, and which is one of the reasons I wanted to do a backpack, because it does give you a chance to add some fun little features to make it your own. So you can use actual zipper lengths as well, and she gives you those measurements. For the interior pocket, I did just use a regular zipper. It was much longer than the pattern called for, so I just trimmed it off in the back. I made sure I zigzagged it together to make sure it would hold, and I just trimmed it to size. So this is just a regular 3mm, like a plasticky vinyl zipper. But I thought for the outside, I like using the big shiny gold stuff, so I thought that'd be fun. Okay, so today we're going to keep going. We're going to start with the straps. Again, if you have questions, feel free to shout them out in the comments. Jackie Hillman is also out with us today. She's out in YouTube. She's always answering your questions out there. But it's fun if we can get them here too, in case any of the Facebook people are wondering. So happy to answer any questions. You don't forget to like and share. If you share this video, you'll get a chance to enter to win our prize. We always do some sort of prize for sharing. And today we'll have 3 lucky winners who will win a fat quarter pack of Quilting Cuddle, which we all love. And the fat quarter pack gives you a lot of options. Some of the pieces in a backpack like this, like the straps, might be too long for a fat quarter cut, but it would give you plenty of options for all the like little detail-y kind of things, accents, all that would be perfect to get some prints from the fat quarter packs, and then you can fill it in with yardage of cuddles from there. And the other thing is that Little Lizard King is offering a $50 store credit to each of our 3 winners today too. So all you have to do is just go to her site, sign up for a basic account there. There's no fee or anything for that. It's just signing up so that your email is in the system. And then I'll forward her the emails for the 3 winners, and she'll pop $50 worth of credit in there for you. So that's very exciting. She has some awesome patterns, and she said it also can be available to use on her adult clothing side of patterns, which is Styla. So we have Styla. So we have Styla and we have Little Lizard King, are both the same, overseen by the same company. Technically, the Veda backpack was on the Little Lizard King side of things, but it's an adult or a kid pattern. It works for both, multiple sizes. But she said that $50 credit can be used for either site, which is just really generous, and we're excited about that. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to keep pushing through because I want to get this finished for you guys today. I want you to see it all come together. And we do have some little details that I'd like to talk about why we're going to do them one way or the other. I do have my pattern printed out. I have my pattern pages printed out from her. What I like about the pattern is that it pulls up perfectly on like an iPad or an iPhone. So you don't have to print out the pages for the instructions, but I did for us here because I'm using my iPad and I'm using my iPhone for the actual live today. So, so I do have them in front of me. I don't want to skip any steps or mess anything up. So I am going to be referring to that here and there. But we're going to work on the straps. So we've got these super long straps, and they're cut out with a pattern piece. What we're going to do is, let me take this one here. We are going to be pressing this Quilting Cuddle. And I've told you guys before, we don't worry about pressing here with the Quilting Cuddle. You can certainly use a pressing cloth. I don't always use a pressing cloth with Quilting Cuddle. I've kind of gotten away from doing it because I've been doing it so much and I haven't had any issue. But if you're nervous at all, use a pressing cloth. So I'm going to switch to my overhead view. I know there's a lot going on the screen, so just forgive the messiness. But I've got all my pieces here and stuff. So just let's try to focus in on here where my iron is. So I'm going to put this Quilting Cuddle down. Now you'll see here, when I cut these out, I made sure that the nap was going in one direction or the other, that it wasn't going this way. So my nap is running this way. And when you're going to put the backpack strap on, you're going to want it to be from the top of your body down, right? You're going to want to be able to pet it like this. So when you're working with the strap, kind of keep that in mind. She talks about taking one end and folding it up about a 1/2 inch. This is going to give it like finish this edge nicely here. So it doesn't have to be exact. That's a little bit more than a 1/2 inch, but I use my tailor's clapper here to really hold that into place. So I pressed right on it, Wasn't worried about doing the pressure on there, but my tailor's clapper is just holding that steam in there, that the heat, and it'll give it a little bit of more of a crisp. Sorry, I had that diagonal there, so now it's kind of a weird crisp line. But it gives it a more crisp line, if that makes sense. So get it under there properly first. Also going to turn my heat up just a little bit. I had it on a low setting, and I'm actually going to put it up a little bit. That Quilting Cuddle I found can take quite a bit of heat. Okay, so we got that edge folded up, and then we're just going to fold the other edge up. I've got this rickety system here right now where I'm using this little arm. It's an arm ironing board for sleeves, sleeve board. And then I'm using this piece of wool up here just to kind of give a bigger surface and some stability, but it looks a little bit ridiculous. So excuse that. That's not my normal system. I didn't want to have my big giant ironing board out here because with the rest of the steps, I'm not going to need it all the time. So I figured this was just an easier setup for this. So as you can see, I'm just kind of making sure this edge is going to be nice and crisp where the fold is. And you just go along the whole thing, keep pressing. We're putting the raw edges together here, and we are going to put a binding on this. It's a fun feature that I really like on these straps where it has a decorative binding on the edge. You could just make a strap that is, flipped to the right side, sewn together that way. But I like that it has this binding for a fun little detail. So you just press the whole thing in half, wrong sides together this whole way down. Get it all pretty well lined up. The other option in the pattern is because there are 3 different sizes, there's also different strap widths. So this is the larger strap width and I'm going to use the larger buckles. There are pattern pieces and directions for if you want skinnier straps and thinner buckles. So again, just a lot of attention to detail with this pattern. Okay, so that's all set there. What we're going to do is we're going to come over to the sewing machine, and we're just going to base this in place. I don't want this raw edge, this edge here, to get messed up later. So I'm going to just put me on there. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm showing Ginger when she probably doesn't want to show up there. Okay, so we're just going to take a basting stitch and run it along this edge. This is that folded edge that we made nice and crisp. This is the raw edge. I am not going to pin this because it does stay together pretty well. Just going to run it right through. When we get down to here, you see this was where we folded that edge under so that you could have a finished edge here. And even though that's a basting stitch, I want to make sure I just catch it nicely there. Oh, and of course, what happens when you're on screen is you run out of bobbin. Let me just put this bobbin. I have another bobbin here I can throw in. But isn't that always the way? Don't we always run out of bobbin right when we don't want to?
Always, right? Like we're always playing bobbin chicken. That's my favorite game.
And it's funny because you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times before, but oops, sorry, get my camera back on. You've heard me say it 1,000 times before, but I've been doing so much with those Bernina L8 sergers, and they always say that the cover stitch side of the L890 sergers is an endless bobbin, right? Because you're getting that chain stitch underneath. You don't have to worry about a bobbin not catching something. And this is the exact time when you'd wish you had it, right? So let me just put this other bobbin in. I did fill another one here. I was smart enough to think I might need one. Say it again.
Yeah, at least you prepared, because, it would be my luck that I didn't have the extra one.
Yeah, always, always. I did put a fresh needle in today because I have been doing a few different projects, and I'm not always good about using a fresh needle. So we do have a fresh 9014 stretch needle in there. And we're using the 100% polyester thread. And I did have an extra bobbin there, which is very smart. I was using, for the top stitch, I was using the, it was a purple color, but I just put in the bobbin thread, I just put a gray, and you're not gonna be able to see it. It gets so lost in those, in that fluff, it's not gonna matter. So I wish they wouldn't, yeah, a sewing machine with an endless bobbin would be great, but I will say that cover stitch, you'd be shocked with that, they're calling it the serger straight stitch is what Bernina calls it. And I've been shocked with just how low profile that stitch is. And it's been working great for piecing, all sorts of things. We're going crazy with that machine, you guys. But I've been spoiled. I'm not used to my bobbin running out. So I agree. If they could get that in a sewing machine, we'd all be happy. Okay, so this has been just lightly basted in place. That's why I wasn't worried when it ran out. This wasn't a detail that's going to be showing up on the machine, on the backpack later. So I wasn't worried about the stitching looking perfect there. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to take, this is an accent piece that I'm going to put on there. So that's going to be the binding that's going to go over the edge of this strap. I'm going to go back to our overhead view here and show you what I'm going to do here. So on one end, again, you want to make sure you've got the nap going in the correct direction. So that's this way. And then I want this finished, the edge that I'm finishing, I'm doing the same thing, pulling up that 1/2 inch or so. I want it to be at what would be considered the bottom of the strap, way down at the bottom of the backpack, because you'll see as we go to run the hardware through, that's going to be the hardware that goes toward the bottom. The other part of the strap is going to go right into the backpack, and so we don't need a finished edge there. Okay, so that's done there. Now let's take, and we're going to pin it right, again, like get that side there. I already have one that's been pinned, and what I like to do is I like to, I'll show you. So I have, this is going to now come around. Now in the pattern, we would fold it and bring it over like that. We don't technically have to because this is Cuddle and wouldn't fray. So we could trim half of that off and just bring it over and zigzag it on. I'm going to do it today because I like the squishy thickness of this. I think it's just going to make a really fun accent on the backpack. So I'm going to do it that way. But what I want to show you now is I sewed this to that side like this. So then when I have the strap that's next to it, I want it to be opposite. Does that make sense? I don't want them to be on the same way. So then I would want this to be stitched on this side to flip that way. Does that make sense? I just want them to not be the exact same so that it adds a little more interest to it when you're wearing that backpack later. Okay, so we're going to pin this, or you could even clip it right to there. Again, that's the folded over edge. You could leave this detail out. I just think it's a fun detail. I've done these backpacks where I have had a solid color for the strap and then a fun patterned detail. And for this one, because this main fabric is just so wild, I thought it'd be fun to have solid detail there. So you can see I'm not putting a lot of pins in here. The reason for that is that these don't have to match exactly. I don't need these straps to turn out like the exact specific length. So I'm not taking the time to really pin a ton. In fact, I might even just do a couple clips toward the end. I've done these a few times and I just know that it works pretty well here. So let's just, here you can see I was off a little bit with my pressing. So when I basted it, it didn't come through, but you'll see. This is what's so nice about the Cuddle, is that it's all going to work out great in the end. It's going to be beautiful and no one's going to have known any of this was going on.
Ajaire, we have lots of comments that are like, you know, I need to make several. I know the grandkids are going to want them. They're saying that they love the idea of binding on straps for backpacks and totes. So that's a really clever idea and kind of fun.
Yes, so I think it's such a fun detail. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the other view. Yes, I think it's such a super fun detail. And you can make it, you can do anything with it. Think about, you could do this also. I've done these backpacks, not just with Quilting Cuddle, I've done it with C3. It works great with C3. I've done the main part, even with Luxe, with some C3 details before we had the Quilting Cuddle. Think about all of the digital cuddle that we have, all those fun prints. So this one I'm making for myself. So I'm doing it sort of more adult prints, but I've done these for my kids every year. Not every year. I showed you guys last time the backpack that my oldest has been using for, I don't even know, 3 years now, I think I said. So I haven't made her one in a few years because she's just been happy with that one, and it has held up like amazingly well. So you put all this effort in, and it really is durable. I mean, you guys know Cuddle is 100% polyester, so you can wash it up. You know, these backpacks get dirty, especially, I mean, she was in middle school. I'm sure the thing was filthy, so I had to wash it. And it just launders perfectly, right? And you can see I'm not being like, that's wandered a little bit there. I really am fine with it because the detail is going to come off really, really well either way. And because the strap ends up turning in on itself, you know how straps kind of, they just have to wrap around to have it adjustable. Nobody's going to see any of these details. The stitching all gets hidden in the cuddle. See right here, remember I slipped a little bit there and didn't include it. You can see with my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, it's going to catch it just fine. So I try to be a little more relaxed when I'm sewing with Cuddle. The thing I always typically do is a lot of pinning, but and you'll see when we go to actually put the backpack together, that's when I'll be using a lot of pins, a lot of clips, because that's when it starts to matter. These straps, this is a time when it doesn't matter. So you know when you see me pinning a lot, that means it's been a time that actually matters. All right, so let me clip my threads real quick. My machine is older, and so I have to clip everything, and I get spoiled using all these really nice machines when I teach, and then I come back to my old workhorse here, right? So again, I'm just pressing. I'll show you guys my overhead view just so you can see what's going on with this backpack straps. There you go. So I'm pressing this flat. So I'm pressing the seam over toward the binding. So up toward the binding. Like that. Just trying to get it to where everything's going to sit nice and straight. Turn it down just a little bit. I can feel it's a little bit hot now. It can't decide if it wants to be hot or cold today. Here's my clapper. Go right on that clapper. Press it nice down there. Okay, so we've got that like that. And again, we could trim part of this off. I also forgot to mention, these do have some SF101 on them. We talked about this last time, so if you haven't watched the other video, we do put some stabilizer on all these backpack pieces. It's a very lightweight stabilizer. It's Pellin's SF101 fusible, and it goes on really nicely, but it's adding a little depth there. So it gives it a little bit more structure. So, but anyway, we could trim and then just fold and zigzag. And if we did that, we'd probably want to do it with a blade so that we're not, giving the whole thing a big haircut. But I'm going to turn under and turn over again, just like we normally would with the binding. All right, so Stephanie's saying, I had no idea we can iron the front side of Cuddle. All right, so I am using Quilting Cuddle here, and us ambassadors are always saying we're supposed to break the things so that you guys know what you can and can't break, right? Sheila's always saying that. I've said it. And I've had no problem pressing on the front of the Quilting Cuddle, to be honest. I've done it a whole bunch of times. I have that foundation paper piece pattern that we're going to be teaching in classes pretty soon here. And for that, I just press right on it. If you are nervous at all, use a pressing cloth. And that's what I did at first for a long while because I wanted to be sure. And I just found that I'm using a lower setting. So I have this Oliso, this is one of those nice Oliso irons. I have it just past the wool and silk setting. So it's just past the lowest area into like that medium area. I have steam. So I'm using steam, and it's going to turn out really nicely. I'm not worried about it leaving any long standing marks. And again, this tailor's clapper helps you to be able to lock in crisper seams. So you can see here how nicely that's going to look on both sides. And we are just going to do a stitch down there. So let me just press the rest of this. Get this all nicely pressed. And then I'll show you how we're going to put all that hardware on. We're going to put the rings on and the sliders. And that's all the fun part of bag making. That's like you get to choose what your sliders are going to look like. There's lots of like local stores where you can get fun hardware. Do you back all your cuddle with SF101? I don't normally. So typically I don't use SF101 if I'm doing even stuffed animals. I don't really do it. But with a backpack or really any kind of bag, I do. It doesn't add a ton of stiffness, but what it does is it adds some structure. So it just allows you to have some structure in your bag. And this pattern specifically does tell you to put SF101 in every piece, and that's no matter what kind of material you're using. But I do it with Cuddle. I think it just gives it a crispness, but the softness is still there. So you're still touching something soft, but these straps will be really nice and strong. Now remember, a Cuddle does stretch, and what that SF101 does is it kind of keeps it from stretching. So that's a big plus when it comes to something like this, where we've got long straps, that you certainly wouldn't want these straps to be stretching on you. But we do use it throughout the whole bag. And as we talked about last time, I use the Decoville Light is another stabilizer product. I use that in, let's see, where did I put that? Oh, that's in a few of the pieces. So this is the back. Oops, sorry, looking at my front camera. Hold on. This is the backing of the backpack. That's going to be the back, and you can see in there I used that off color, that sort of a crew color. It's cut down to size, so it doesn't have the seam allowance. There's a pattern piece in there specifically for extra stabilizer that has the seam allowances off of it, which is very handy. So I didn't have to cut out those seam allowances. It was already on this pattern piece itself, had a piece for the stabilizer. So that Decoville Light is a little bit crunchier. It fuses on there, but it makes it so that like it's just has more structure. See, it kind of like would fold. But it really makes a nice secure backpack. You don't do every piece with this, and she tells you exactly which pieces to do. And again, we talked about that in the last video if you want to go back and check that out. But all the pieces, including the ones that have that Decoville Light, do have the SF101 underneath. So it's the two fusibles. When I do put the fusible on there in the first place, I put it on like the yardage. So what I'll do is I'll take my big pieces of SF101, because there are quite a few pieces with this bag, and I will just fuse the stabilizer to a big piece of Cuddle, and then from there cut the pieces out. So that means the pieces from the first time that they're cut out are already stabilized. So I'm not worrying about any kind of stretch, any kind of anything. Once they're cut, they're already stabilized. And then I will put the Decoville Light on the pieces that need it. Okay, so this has been, I'll show you guys. Let's go back to here. So this has been pressed. Now I'm going to clip this in place. This right here is that end that had the finishing on it. So that's the toughest spot there. That's the part that is the thickest. So that's going to be the hardest part to get through. The rest of it shouldn't be too bad. So I am going to put a clip there. I'm going to put some pins and clips. And then you'll see I'll kind of use the stiletto as we go to get it nice and to make sure everything's sticking where it's supposed to stick. So we put this one to the side. Let me just clip this other one in place really quick, and then we will do them both. So I'm thinking this one might work a little bit better because I will end with this tight part here instead of beginning with it like I'm going to have to do over there. But let's see how it goes. I'm going to press this down just to give it a chance to be pushed in place with the tailor's clapper. The tailor's clapper also just helps to kind of make a tight fit there, because there's quite a few layers here, right there. Quite a few layers going on. Let's see where my clips are. Hold that clip in place. Okay, and then the rest of this, just put a few pins in there, and then we'll get started with sewing both of these. I'm going to use a zigzag stitch. We could just use a regular straight stitch to put this binding on. It's going to disappear into the cuddle anyway, so it's not for decoration. The stitching itself isn't going to be for decoration. I also want you to see how that's not lining up perfectly there. Again, remember, I didn't pin it. I was just willy-nilly when I put this on, but that's not going to matter in the end. This edge here is not going to be seen, so it's going to all work out. I just want to show you, when you saw me being reckless, like that's what was happening. But that's okay. It's going to work out just fine. Okay, let's go over to my sewing machine and we will stitch this up. There we go. Yep, now here we are. Let's get these straps done. This is the hard part. We're starting with this tough one up here. I am going to, let's just drop that, put a pin in here. It's kind of through, not through the whole layer, it's just through part of it. So this is thick right here. I am going to do a zigzag, so I'm going to pop out to the zigzag stitch. Hopefully you're not bouncing around too much up there, for the camera's not bouncing on you. Let me lift it up just a little bit, see. That helps you guys see better. There we go.
Okay, Ajaire, you're going to do a zigzag stitch, but what is like your stitch length going to be?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out now. So I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do a 4 wide and I'm going to do 4 long. That sounds really ridiculous, but with the cuddle and the thickness here, it's not going to make some giant stitch. The wide is going to be a little bit crazy, but at least at this end, I want to make sure it's getting through everything. So I am going to hand walk it through first, just a little bit. Again, remember, my machine is older, so it needs a little bit of help sometimes. Take that clip out.
And you're using your walking foot, right?
Walking. It's not a walking foot on this one. This one is the Janome, I think it's AccuFeed or Dual Feed. It's one of the ones, one of the feeds that is attached to it. So it's back here. It's back here. I would absolutely be using a walking foot if I didn't have that in. So it's attached to it, which is nice. I have some fuzz up here. I have not cleaned my machine recently enough. I was making Barclays, and so he was full of fuzz on me. All right, so now I'm just, I like how wide this stitch is because I'm making sure that I'm really getting that edge there. And it will kind of be decorative on this quilting cuddle. If I was being super duper careful about making this look nice, that I wouldn't even bother to fluff it up later because it actually could be a neat little detail. But I'm really just rushing, not rushing, but you know what I mean? I'm just not, you see me, I normally pin a lot more than this. I just want to be able to show you guys what the detail looks like. And then when you do it, you can decide if you want to be like me and just race through, or if you want to take extra time to make the detail really nice. Like this now is thicker, like it's a pretty wide detail, but I kind of want more of the purple to show because I want that sort of striped effect in the strap. You could have trimmed this down and just turned over and zigzagged, like I mentioned before, but I wanted a big pop of that bellflower purple color here. All right, so just get this stitched up. Almost there. Sorry, the straps take the longest, guys, because they are just so long. Right. Zigzag at the end. All right. So I'm going to trim my threads. Going to have to trim. And then you can see the zigzag in there. You can see it really well on that side. And I could fluff it up a little bit, but I kind of like how that looks. Let me just do this one, and then we'll talk about how we're going to get that hardware on there. If anyone else has any other questions, we can ask them while I'm doing this part. Again, you still have time to like and share. We are very excited about our prize today, the quarter pack of Quilting Cuddle, and then of course the $50 credit to Little Lizard King's pattern store. If you haven't been over there before, you should check it out. They've got some beautiful patterns. I had with the new Marshmallow Cuddle, there's several of her patterns that I am dying to make. One in particular that I've made a few times that I use Luxe for the skirt, and it's like a big fluffy skirt. And then in the past I've used like a stretch velvet for the bodice, but now I can use that marshmallow and it's going to be stunning. It's just going to be awesome. But she's got some really cute patterns over there. Very well done. Okay. You can see here I'm not even using pins. That's how nice this fabric is. Once we've got that stabilizer in there, I don't know that I would be doing this if it didn't have the SF101, because I would be worried I'd be pulling it or stretching it too much. But because it's got that stabilizer in it, I'm just using my fingers to tuck everything in, and it's just going really nicely. And then when I'm done with this, I will give it a really good pressing just to, make sure everything is lumped together nicely in there. But I wanted to do these the two different ways so you can kind of see. You saw me press the other one into place. Just want you to see how that Quilting Cuddle with its 1.5 millimeter pile is really easily manipulated when you've got that stabilizer in there. So someone was asking earlier if we use SF101 all the time. And of course, we don't use it all the time. If you're going to be quilting or something, we're not using it. But I do like using it with my bags. Bags just have a different quality to them than something like a throw or clothing. Right. That's that thick part here. So I'm just going to use my stiletto to kind of help my machine be happy there, because that part is exposed later. So that part is not stitched into the backpack later. All right, so we'll trim those seams and then we'll go back to the overhead view so you can see what these look like. All right, here we go. Overhead. Okay, so this is the one that I just did. So this is the one that I didn't press before. So I'm pressing it now. Just want to get, because I do like to have everything locked in nicely. So you can see I'm touching it afterward. It's not super duper hot. I mean, my hands kind of are like asbestos just from years of cooking and stuff. So I do have pretty high tolerance for the heat, but it's not super duper hot. Okay, so I just want to hold that up to you guys. So you can see that zigzag stitch in there. I could fluff that out, but I think on the backpack, well, first of all, from far away, you're not going to see it. But I like the thickness of it. I like that it's a little bit wider than like a cotton would be if it was double folded like this. It just wouldn't stand up as much. Okay, so those are now done. And let's go to start putting our hardware on them. I'm going to move this iron down just for a second so it's out of the way, just because it's big up here. Okay, so I'm going to go to my overhead view. No, sorry, not overhead view, my front facing view. And then I will put my iron down. There we go. Okay, so now we're back. We're going to start dealing with the hardware on these two big long straps. So I showed you before that I'm using these gold pieces I'm excited about. They're really pretty. These I got from Walk, which is an online shop. They're pretty close to me. I think they're New York. The shipping here is very fast from them. I looked at a local place and they didn't have what I wanted, so I went through them. So local places get more hardware because I need it. But I've got these little D rings there, and then I've got these sliders here. So I've got two of each, and I'll show you how we use them. So, and these, again, this is all in the pattern. Let me go to my overhead so you can actually see what I'm doing here. So I've got the pattern itself, which I'll put to the side so you don't have to see that, all those pages, but this clear space here we'll use. So we've got one strap. This is that finished edge. And then we'll have the other strap. This is that finished edge. So then I have to picture, well, when it's on the backpack, am I going to want the decorative edge on the outside, or am I going to want the decorative edge on the inside, like if these straps are together? Is any of this important? Probably not. But these are all the details I like to think about when I am making bags, because you have a chance to really take advantage of all those details. So I think I'm going to like it like this, where the detailing is on the outside edge. So that's the way I'm going to have it. All right. And then we're going to attach one of these sliders to each one. So what we do is we put an end through just like that. Put the other one through just like that. And then you're going to put it through the other side like that. So we've got, just going to put it through. The same thing with this one. And you really don't want to pull it up a ton. You just want enough that you could get your machine under there past this hardware. You could put a zipper foot on here so you can get super duper close to the edge there. But I'm going to put some rivets in here too. So I'm not worried about getting super duper close to it. I just want to be able to catch it. So I'm going to stitch these down. I'm going to go back to my machine. I'll show you how we stitch these in place. Again, you could get out your zipper foot. And later there's times when I might get the zipper foot out, but for this, I'm not going to bother with the zipper foot. See how I'm pressing it down about that much. I will put a clip on one end. I'm again going to use the zigzag here because I want to make sure I've got the whole thing. And so I'm just going to, again, the pattern itself says to use a straight stitch, but I'm just going to zigzag across here to make sure I catch the whole thing in place. There have certainly been cotton ones I've done where I have been a lot more careful about, it's not going backwards or something, the stitches and things here, but I am going to put some rivets in here. So I'm not worried about this stitching holding it together. I'm just really using it for now to hold it in place. And we'll talk about the rivets when I get to them in just a minute. Those are kind of fun, and they do work well with Cuddle. They'll work. All right, trim that, and then we'll do the other one the exact same way, just on the other side. I'm going to try to get them to be about the same width just so that it looks good, but does it really matter? Probably not. Yeah, this is like, I'm thinking it's so big there. It's not having a problem getting past the buckle. It's the thickness of the Cuddle there. The machine is like, there we go. I could also use their you know, those, I'm just hand doing the zigzag across, you know, the step things that you use to, so it's got the presser foot up, so it thinks it's in danger. But I'm not using one like to make it so that the two widths, here, I'll show you. Right. Again, that got tacked on enough for what I'm doing, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. Just clip these real quick. Go back over here to the overhead again. Okay, so these are now both stitched down. And what I was saying was this part here is very thick, right? We've got two layers, many layers in there, really. So what I should have done is use the compensator between this thickness and this thinness. But because, again, I'm not super duper worried about what the stitches look like right now, I didn't. But you could use, you know, if you've got those like Gina-majig, a lot of machines will come with a specific little adapter that you put behind to let your fabric come up and down. So I didn't. It's all going to work out just fine. Do not worry. Okay, so we're done with that page. Let's move that over. So now we got those parts done. We're going to put this to the side. Those are the straps. They're ready to go. So let's put those over. And now we're going to work on the handle. There's a handle. I'll show you guys that view. There's a handle on the top of the bag. And so we're going to make that handle. And it actually has a fun little accent as well. So we've got this piece of fabric, and then we're going to see which one is the handle piece. Those are the same. I'm going to double check. I think it's this smaller rectangle, but I don't want to accidentally use the wrong piece. So let me just look really quickly, because I will be so sad if I use the wrong piece. So I'm pretty sure that's the handle accent. Yeah, it's much smaller. Okay. I got the right one. I get nervous, right? We want to make sure that it's all good. And again, this is a time when you could use your regular fabric for the strap, and then you could use a piece of decorative vinyl for the accent. I'm using Cuddle, obviously. So we're going to do it like this. Go back to the overhead, and I'm going to bring my iron back up because we're pressing again. So let's get that iron up. And we'll show you the overhead view. Okay. So for this piece, we're really just basically going to turn the ends in and then turn it like that. So this says to draw a line, so I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to follow the instructions, you guys. Does this shock you that I'm actually going to follow the instructions? Okay, so the whole thing is 1, 2, 3 inches wide. So at 2.5 an inch, it says draw a line down the middle. So I'm going to draw a line down the middle, just with my pencil here. Draw a line down the middle, and then draw a line 1/2 inch away on either side. And then we're just going to fold those edges in to meet there. This way, I'm going to make the handle a little neater than I bothered doing with the straps, because this is going to be more visible. I feel like it's going to be right on the top of the bag. And so I want to make sure it's going to look actually nice. All right, so yes, I'm doing it right. I just want to make sure I was doing it right. So I'm just folding that edge now down to that 1/2 inch line I just drew. I'll put that back in. There's only one handle. Obviously, it's in the very top of the bag. Go. Flip to the other side, and I'm going to bring that edge down. And sometimes people think they won't put a handle on a bag, but I have found that it really is valuable having the handle, because especially on kids' bags, because they're always hanging them up on their hooks at school. And if you don't have a really nice secure handle, they have nothing to put on the hook. So I've definitely have started using them way more often. All All right, so now we're just folding those two edges together. So those are the two edges that we just pressed. Now those are going to match together. I'm being a little more careful to get them even this time, because again, this is going to be more visible on the top than our straps really would have been. Okay.
Ajaire, there's lots of people laughing about LOL directions, right? Like,
oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, who's following the instructions, right? I'm actually one of these people who is pretty good about reading through the instructions first. Like and then once I've done it once, that's where I'm dangerous, because once I've done it once, I'm like, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Who cares about that? Like, I almost always sew it the right way the first time. I mean, lots of us out there don't even bother doing it right the first time, don't even read the instructions, but I do. I am one of those people that obsessive about it. But the next time, then I think I know better, and that's when I get myself in trouble. Okay, so I'm going to get to the go back to the machine now. I'm going to stitch this down on both sides. Let's get to the machine. There we go. All right, so we're going to be stitching down both edges of this. Really, the second edge is decorative, but I'm going back to a regular stitch. It's just a straight stitch, but I am going to do it at 3 millimeters, 3 millimeters wide, just because I know that my machine will do better at 3 millimeters than it would at anything smaller. If I feel like it's sticking at all, then I might even go wider, like a longer, I should say, not wider, longer. So again, you'll see I'm not pinning this. That SF101 just makes it nice and stable. So I'm taking care to make sure everything's lining up, and then I'm using the stiletto to help keep it together. But it's shocking just how well using that stabilizer changes things. And I will stitch down the other side, even though technically it's a decorative stitch and nobody's going to see it, but it will kind of keep this handle in place in a way that if I don't do it, it's not going to. Now, this is the direction of nap here. Do you see how that started to slow down? I was not happy right there because I'm going against the direction of nap. So my machine got a little unhappy with me and it was slowed way down. But I was also just rushing it through. So you can see my stitches got very small there. So I'm going to bump this back up to a 3.5. Your machine is going to do different things. It really, every machine's different. So you got to kind of get a feel for what your machine's going to do. Okay, so we've got that decorative piece, and I'm going to measure this too. Guys, I'm being a rule follower today. I am going to do the same thing. Wait, this one says 1 inch long edge. So I'm going to draw an inch in. This is that accent bellflower color again. All right, and then we're going to 3/8 of an inch. Hold on a second. Do I really want to do that? Press the long edges. Then I just, yep, okay, that makes sense. And then that's just going to go together. Okay, so now we've got this piece. We're going to fold each of the edges of the short edges here down. So we're going to make, we're basically making so each end here is finished. I'm doing it this way because I have the entire piece covered with SF101. And if I leave the raw edge right now, it's going to show that tiny bit of white from the stabilizer underneath. Whereas if I had just cut out a piece of Quilting Cuddle or C3 or something and it didn't have that white, I probably would just leave the raw edge. But I'm afraid that here, that SF101 is going to peek out. Does that make sense? So I really am tucking everything under in a way that I probably wouldn't if I wasn't doing it this way. Does that make sense? I don't know. If I didn't have that stabilizer, I mean. The stabilizer is helping me in a lot of ways, but that's one thing is I don't love the look of a raw edge if it had the stabilizer in there. Because I can see that pop of white from the stabilizer. So I could always cut the stabilizer a little bit short and just do it that way. Okay, so now I have my strap and I can decide which I want to be the way to face up. I think I'm going to do this side up. And then this is going to go on top and it wraps around, like it wraps around itself. It should meet in the middle. So I might have done these ones a little bit too wide. So let me see this. The thickness of the cuddle can matter here because I can see it's meeting there. And then to get it to meet, oops, yeah, I want to make sure I have the right side up, correct side that I'm going to use. Yep, just like that. Okay, this one that I'm on right now is the wrong side, and my brain keeps thinking it's the right side. So, okay, so see how those two edges are going to meet here? Again, this is the wrong side. The right side is going to have just the straight purple there. If I was being super picky, I'd probably measure from the center of both sides and make sure it's centered, but it really looks pretty well centered to me. So I'm just going to go with that. She uses clips here, so maybe I'll throw some clips in. You know me, I typically pin versus clip, but when it comes to some of these bulkier things, it can be nice to use some clips here. And I'll probably put a pin over here. Sometimes I do that combo of pins and clips. All right, and when we go to secure this down, actually, sorry, I'm going to pin from the top because when I go to stitch it down, I am going to want to stitch from the top because remember, this is the wrong side and we want to make sure we have the right side. Just trying to get this thickness to fall where I want it to fall. There we go. So that side. And clip the other side. So you just can manipulate it until it's going to do what you want from the right side. If this whole backing isn't covered on the wrong side, it's fine too. Again, this is just decoration. Let me find another clip. My clips fell earlier, so. Okay, and then from the right side, I'm going to just pin this part in place from the top side. I can feel it with the bottom of my fingers here, just so that I know that it's in place there and it's going to get caught. Same thing here. And then we'll stitch it down. And we're going to stitch in a, we go down and make almost a box shape. And then we are going to go and do a box shape in the middle too. You'll see. We're going to go back to that straight stitch. So let's go back to the screen here. All right, so we're going back to the straight stitch and we are just stitching all around this part that we just put down. So let's get in here. Again, this is thick here, so don't forget that it's pretty thick because we've got a lot of layers here. So depending on your machine, it might not be happy with you, but it's going to work out just fine. I always have to make sure I've got my threads ahead of time because otherwise my machine does not like to get started with thickness like that. So I kind of have to help it do what I want it to do. So you can see I've got this pin, but it's actually going to the side of the needle there. There wasn't any danger that the needle was going to hit the pin. So always take out your pins if there's going to be any chance of hitting them. Go slow again because we get that really big thickness. There we go. Made it through. And we'll pivot to do the side. And remember, I did, yep.
Oh, are you doing a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch?
Straight stitch here. You could do a zigzag with Cuddle because it'll be hidden, but I am doing the straight stitch. And I was just about to say, I did bump that up to the 3.5 and my machine is much happier with that. So really, you'll just decide what your machine's going to want, or your machine's going to decide what it wants, and then you got to stick with it. So I put this pin in the wrong way, and I don't want to get it stuck in there. So now I'm just going to do this and kind of hope for the best on that wrong side. We'll see how it goes. I'm stitching about 1/4 of an inch away from the side for this part, except except on the two ends. And then like I said, I will go back in and stitch a rectangle. See what my machine does when it hits thickness that it doesn't like. These are fresh needles, but it's just so thick in there that it's thinking that there's a danger when there's not. It senses that the presser foot is up high, and so it thinks the presser foot isn't up. But I can just hand crank and I can manipulate with the stiletto to make it work. So I'm now stitching that, and I'll go just putting a few lines in here to tack everything in place, and it will look nice later. Again, I'm not trying to do a decorative stitch. If this were a cotton where all of these top stitching like things would be seen, I'd be being a lot more careful. This is, once you fluff these up a little bit, you're not going to really see these stitches. So let me see if I caught everything. So pretty narrow. Yeah, everything's caught in the back nicely. Didn't meet at a perfectly in the back, but again, it's going to be the underside of the strap, so you're not going to be able to see it. Let me give you that overhead view so you can always see it. So here's the overhead view here. So everything got stitched down on it. I think that purple looks nice, but see how the back didn't meet perfectly around it? It's fine. It's still going to do its duty. This is a very nice, thick, sturdy strap in here. So that's not really going to matter back there that they didn't meet, but I could have manipulated it a little bit more to make sure it was going to better.
Ajaire, some people are asking if you could have used like a double-sided basting tape.
With this, it's tricky because it's on the Cuddle side. I use wash away wonder tape all the time. In fact, I used it last time with doing the zipper, but because this is it's not on the backing that you're sticking it down, it would actually be on the fluffy part of the Cuddle, because remember we folded this back. What I probably would do next time that I did it is I wouldn't put the SF-101 on the decorative pieces. I would only put them on these pieces, and then I would do that raw edge binding where it just came with the raw edge. And then with the raw edge, you could use that temporarily in there, or glue stick. The 505 glue stick would work great too, because all that stuff does wash out. Again, I'm not worried about that being on the underside of my strap. That's the part that's going to show, but just, you know, you can make it a little bit, you can make it better than that.
Okay.
That's the nice thing about Cuddle. But I don't know that I would put the wash away wonder tape on the Cuddle side with the Cuddle side. I think it's not going to stick as well as it would if it wasn't with that Cuddle side. But you're certainly welcome to try it.
Jana asked a question about how about not folding back one side so it slides under the other edge?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, I probably would just make it so that I wouldn't double fold, like fold both over. I didn't even really need to fold these ends over because that raw edge would work just fine. So we could just do like we do a Cuddle binding and zigzag it on, and it would be nice. It would look great, and you wouldn't have the gap in the back. Yep, you could definitely do it that way. You could sew the whole tube together and slide it on and then just stitch it down. Like, that's another option here. It's just the thickness of the Cuddle. These are the kind of things that as you go along, you kind of have to figure out when you're using Cuddle instead of a different type of fabric. There'll be some little things like that that you need to make decisions on. So gotcha. I wasn't super duper worried about the decorative aspect of it. I just think from far away, it's going to be nice to have that little purple color. And I wasn't super worried. Functionally, it's going to do its job. It's a nice sturdy handle. But I wasn't worried about that detail. If this was cotton and more people could see it, I'd be more worried. I like my cotton stuff to be perfect, but with Cuddle, I just worry a lot less. Okay, so now we're going to use the connectors. These are the strap connectors. They get attached to the bag, and then the bag, and then the actual straps get woven through these. So I put these little D-rings inside these. You'll see how we're going to go put them together. So I think she has us mark these as well. So I'm going to change to the overhead and then check that out. Okay, so I'm not going to mark them. We're just going to fold each of the edges to meet in the middle. So similar to what we did before, just going to fold these to meet in the middle. each one of them, and then cross over. Yes. And then, so really we're just wanting the straps to meet in the middle. We're not actually stitching them down right there. We're going to stitch them on the other side. You'll see. All right. Just so really they should look like that from the other side. And then we're just going to stitch down these to make sure everything is nice and secure in there. We are not folding under that edge. These are going to be folded together later, like that. The little D-ring is going to go on this like that. So with the stitches down there, we don't need to have that part actually connected because this is not going to fray inside there. So for this one, we're not stitching through layers and layers and layers, if that makes sense. Just trying to get a nice crisp edge because I want the edges to look nice. You want these edges to both look good. So now we're going to go back to the machine and we will stitch again. All right. There we go. Okay. So I'm now just going to straight stitch again, 3.5 millimeters, and I'm just going to stitch about 1/4 of an inch down each side. This one through too, I'm not worrying about back stitching so much at each end because I know these ends are going to be tucked inside the backpack later. So I'm just sort of putting them through without too much back stitching. If I was worried about these edges being exposed or coming undone or something, then I definitely would back stitch. But these are going to be secured later. It's going to be stitched inside the backpack. Okay.
Ajaire, there's lots of people that are commenting on the pattern. So I just want to remind everyone that it's the Whispering Blooms.
Yes.
Quilting Cuddle in the purple colorway.
Yep. So it's this gorgeous, show this fuller piece over here. It's this beautiful colorway. There's a few different colorways in this Whispering Blooms collection. They're just absolutely stunning. The colors are so vibrant. I mean, I really couldn't get over it when I saw it in person. So yeah, that's what these are. It's in the purple colorway. And then again, these are just going to fold over like that. And we'll put the D-rings on them. Now, they're going to go through like that. And then, where'd my other one go? Oh, here it is. Here's the other one here. So that wrong side, all those wrong edges are going to get tucked inside like that. And you're not going to see them and they're not going to fray. And they're just going to, we're going to stitch across these ends just to hold them together. And then I am going to be putting rivets in these too, I think. So I'm not worried about it staying together. And I promise we're going to talk about rivets and actually what they do. Let's go back to the sewing. This is just quick stitches that I throw in here. So this part here is going to get tucked into the backpack. So it's going to be nice and secure in there and held. But I am going to try to do some stitches close to this D-ring. If I weren't going to be putting rivets in here later, I would stitch closer. I would do like a big box or something here as close as I could there. And I probably would get out my zipper foot. But I'm not because I am going to be putting some rivets to really secure the whole thing. So I am just trying to do a few stitches to hold it together. I'm going slow because I don't want to accidentally go over that D-ring. All right. I'm just going to snip those threads. Okay. And then I'm going to do the other one. Might not get as close to the other one. Again, you could always use your zipper foot here, and you can get really nice and close. But I'm not going to bother switching out. My zipper foot doesn't work on the this AccuFeed system or whatever it is, so I don't, or dual feed, so I don't like to swap it out unless I need to. And often I found that I haven't really needed to. Okay, we got that part done. So let's go and we'll see what is the next step. We got these little D-rings done. Oops, sorry about that. I don't know how that happened. Sorry, Ginger, I keep getting you popped on screen accidentally. So my little D-ring, these are the strap connectors are done. We've got our little actual handle done. So let's see what's next. There's always something, right? Ooh, okay, so I know what's going on next. The back panel. So this, it's actually pretty cool how she has you work on the back. So this is the back of the bag, and it's where the straps and the handle and everything are going to get attached to this back. And she uses these, she calls them the connectors. No, not connectors. The back panel. What does she call it? Connector strips. Strap connector strips. So I've got two of these. Again, when you decide what you're doing with your pieces in the beginning, you can decide if your accent colors are going to be the pattern or the accent colors are going to be a solid, whatever you want. And so I decided I wanted the accents to all be this bellflower color. So those are going to go on the top and bottom, and then the straps and stuff are going to go in between. So remember, this is the smaller size of the backpack. I have made the much larger ones too, but this is the smaller size. It's going to be a really cute kind of like backpack purse when it's done. So I'm really excited about how this is going to look. So let's get these going and I'll show you how it all comes together. It's pretty cool. All right, so we're going to be pressing the edges of these again. So we're going to press the long edges in to meet just like that, like we did already. I'm going to do both of these. I'm going to actually do a quick press down the middle just to make it obvious where the middle is. Not trying to really make a line there, but just a faint line. See how, oops, let me get you the overhead view. You guys can't even see what I'm doing. Okay, so see how I just put a little crease in there? I don't want it to be too crazy, but I put a crease so I can see where to adjust this to. So I'm putting what this is doing is it is giving us a nicely finished edge here on both sides that we're then going to stitch onto the back of the backpack. So I'll use I don't know if I've mentioned it, but this is the a wool pressing mat. And I find it does work pretty well with Cuddle to have that wool pressing mat on there. I'm mostly using it to give a bigger surface on this tiny little sleeve ironing board that I'm using. If you guys just joined in, got a funny setup here today, but I wanted you guys to be able to see the overhead view of all this pressing we're doing. And I didn't want to get out my big ironing board and have that in the mix. So we pressed one edge over. Now we're going to press the other edge over. It's supposed to be meeting in the actual middle, but I don't want to push it too far just because these do get so thick. I'm just trying to make it nice and even so it'll look great later. I'm not as worried about them meeting perfectly in the middle there. So we'll get both of these done. All right. All right, so those are all set. We're going to have a nice look to them. Again, these are called the strap connector strips. Okay, so you find the backing again.
Ajaire, really quick, what setting is your iron on?
Okay, so I mentioned before, this is that Oliso, like one of the big irons, and it's somewhere toward, right now it's within the wool, nope, sorry, that's the steam. It's just over the line toward linen and cotton, but it's certainly not all the way up there. It's just past the wool and silk. So it's, you know, what is that? That medium? No, it's more than medium. It's 3/4, maybe I would say, away. Not really the hottest setting, but it's not cool either. So it's probably hotter than you guys are expecting it to be. All right, so what we're doing with these pieces is on the pattern piece itself, she tells you, she puts a marking where the strap connectors go. I make a little slip mark so that I don't have to get out my pattern piece again later. So I know where those go. And what she says is she's going to line up next. So you line it right up where that goes. So I can see this notch here. See where I cut out? I'm going to line one edge up there. I'm going to put a pin in there. And remember, both of these edges are folded under nicely. Oh, you know what I didn't do is I didn't, I was lucky. I got my nap going the right direction. So this nap is going this way. So I want these naps to be going that way. And I just lucked out because I didn't remember to do it. These will extend past. It's longer than need to be. So you're just, putting it into place, but I want it to look even. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm going to look across. I'm going to do this flat, not up on this board because that's a little silly looking. Okay, this is going to be better on my actual mat. So we want to go from that notch over to that notch. Make sure you guys can see that. Yeah. So I get that notch there. I'm going to put this in. And then nice and smooth all the way across to the other notches up there. And what you want to see is you want to make sure underneath here that that's nice and even. You don't want this to be dipping way down there or anything. You want everything to be nice and even across. This, obviously, if you're wearing the backpack, it won't be seen because it's the back and it would be against your back. But when you have one of these purse backpacks, well, first of all, when it's not all the way on your back and it's just slung over your shoulder, you could see all these details, but also just, putting it down where people see the details. So I like to try to get this part pretty accurate. And then we're going to stitch across here using about 1/4 inch seam allowance to secure this top edge. So I'll go over to the sewing machine so you guys can see that. There we go. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine. And we're same settings. We're keeping straight stitch 3.5 millimeters. That seems to be what my machine wants today. I am going to do a back stitch, even though this is going to be secured later through the backpack. It just doesn't hurt to back stitch here. We want to make sure this strap connector is going to really be in place because this is what everything gets attached to, or one of them. The other one gets attached to. Okay, so look at that. Trim. Always trimming. Right, and then we've got our other. Those are going to go on the other edge. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the overhead because I want you to be able to see what we're doing here. All right, so that's been caught on this edge up there. So that's in place. Now we're going to lift this up, and this is where we're going to be putting these little D-rings and the strap connectors. So before I put these in here, I'm going to do these rivets now. I think that, let me think for 1 second. Do I want to do the rivets now and then they're in place? Or once that's in place, let me think about the rivets. Rivets are these little, they're going to be a gold accent that I'm using. And I'll show you. Let me show you. They're meant to, see, I even have Wash Away Wonder Tape in there, guys. Someone asked about that. Anyway, they're meant to hold things in nicely. You use them all the time in things like jeans. This is some, let's see, these are size 5/16 of an inch is what they are. There's two ends. So there's this sort of male end that has the prong on it. And then there's the female end, as we call it. So kind of like if you did snaps, you got two different ends. And I'm going to be putting these, like there to really make sure it's firmly holding it in place. Now these are decorative in some way, but they also serve a function. So I'm going to do these now. I was thinking that they might be in the way of stitching later when I go to sew, but I don't think they will be. And it's just best to have these in place now. That way we've got them in. Okay, so I'll show you a few of them. So I'm going to put 2 of them side by side here. I think that's going to look nice. One there and one there. And you figure out my right side. And then the problem with the Cuddle is because it's so thick, it's going to be hard to get through. So what I do is we're going to want to put this post, this prong right in there. And you can use something like an awl to get through there. And often I'll do that with other fabrics. But with Cuddle, I kind of just take my little snips and I'm just snipping a hole in here. I do this sometimes with snaps as well, like just to make a little bit of a hole. I can feel it with my finger back there till I can get through. And then I'm also going to trim from the other side. This is going to be fully inside that rivet later. So it's going to, I'm not worried about it unraveling. Well, I'm also not worried about it unraveling for a few reasons. One, I've got SF101. So that's kind of holding it in place. 2, Cuddle doesn't unravel, as we all know. So that's another reason. But this rivet will cover this hole that I'm making. If that makes sense. I kind of do this when I do the eyes of a stuffed animal as well. All right, so now that rivet is hiding any of the snips that I just made in there. And if I wanted to, I could put like a little dab of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, the stuff that you guys know what I'm talking about. The stuff that holds it in place is down here. So this stuff, fray check. Oh my God, I've got it right down there. Fray check. I'm not going to. I don't love how fray check feels in Cuddle, and it's not necessary, so I'm not going to do it. What I'm worried is I'll put it there, and then it'll drip out here and not have time to dry or something weird, and then it does feel a little crispy. So I'm not going to bother with that. I don't really like doing that. So you take that's the post through. Then I would take this end here, and we put. There's a little anvil thing that comes with it. I always do it on this little block too, because I don't want to wreck my my mat. And then this is curved as well. So it just kind of helps protect the curvature of that. And then you're just going to bang it with a hammer. This is my old ridiculous hammer. And then it just snaps together. See that? So that's in there nice and sturdy. So let me put this other one in really quick. And you can, try to do a really good job of making them completely even. Obviously, I'm just sort of running through it for you guys today.
Ajaire.
Yep.
Kathy is asking, do you think the OESD punch tool would make the hole you need, or would it be too
I
thick?
don't think it would because of the Cuddle. If anyone has used it, I'm happy to hear if it's worked. I mean, yes, that would work if it was something that was thinner. I just think with the thickness of the Cuddle, I typically just kind of make these holes. They have, there's punches for things like leather punches and stuff. Those don't seem to work for me for Cuddle. So I just do it this way. But if someone does know one that works, yeah, I'm happy to try it.
Okay, so can you clarify for me as you're using your scissors to poke that hole? Are you poking the hole, or are you kind of like?
I'm doing a little bit of both. So
Okay.
these are sharp. These are Fiskars. They're like, really, I use them as snips, but I don't think you could use your snips because most of the time snips don't really. They have a pointy end, but I don't think I could get up and in there with these snips.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
what I'm doing is I'm doing like a snip, really small in there. So I'm using this to point at it at the same time that I'm like snipping. It's hard to explain. I'm doing
No, that makes sense. I get it. Yeah.
Snip and a point. Like but it's a little bit of both. I'm trimming the fabric away. I'm trying not to make a giant hole because then these would end up falling through the hole later, the rivet itself. It's just the way that I've been able to find to get through there really easily. Like I said, I do it with when I do the safety eyes, I normally will just snip an X shape and then you can pop it right through. But because there's that double quadruple thickness here plus the stabilizer. It's super thick when you're going through there. So it's hard to just get like a hole. You couldn't use an awl. But anyway, that's what that looks like. I'm not going to do the other one. I will put these ones in later. I'll just pull the bag out and do them. But I'm going to put those ones in there for you. That's what it looks like. And really, I didn't even have to do the stitching under there. I could have just used the rivets instead of the stitching. That's why I wasn't as careful with my stitching in that little part there. But okay, so let's go back to putting this thing together. We are going to use some more rivets later. I used rivets quite a few times in this, but so feel free if you've got other questions about the rivets, let me know. These I did get from Walk. Again, I get a lot of my little hardware from them because I couldn't find them where I wanted locally. And then for these, yep.
Sorry,
no, you're good.
Leah's asking what the block is that you're using.
Oh, this is just a terrible old block of wood. This is literally, okay, so I will say this. This is often what I do. I completely forgot about this, guys. This is actually what I used to do, and I completely forgot. I can't find it right now, but I have a giant nail, a big old giant nail, and that's what all these nail marks are. So what I used to do, and probably still would even in front of you guys today, is I would use that nail, and I would hammer that nail in, and it would get through all the layers using the nail, and then I'd pull the nail out and there would be an actual hole like a punch in there. I forgot about that. It would have actually worked today to do that. So in something thick like this, when I am doing rivet, that's what this block is for, is because I'll like use it to put that nail through. You can see all those holes. Looks like a woodpecker's been in here. But I don't want to wreck this or my surface. So even if I'm not doing the holes and I'm just using, this little guy here, if I'm hammering on it, I try to use this block. It just helps to protect my surface down here. But this is just a piece of scrap. This is scrap. The funny thing is they got this nice tailor's clapper. And I can't remember where I purchased this years ago. It was at a shop. But it's a nice tailor's clapper. Well, when one of my patterns, one of the coat patterns that I designed, my testers were all testing it, and you really had to get crisp seams. So I was telling them to use a tailor's clapper, and a couple of the ladies didn't have one. So they went out and got like a piece of this from their garage and just used one of these, because this is just a piece of wood. If this was clean, you could also use it as a tailor's clapper. It really just holds the steam in the same way. But this is I forgot that I used to do that nail thing. So that's another option, is you can just use a nail to make your way through the thickness of the cuddle. Okay, so now these are those, this is what the straps are going to connect to. So these are the connectors. One has rivets, one doesn't. Again, I'll even that out later. I can put those rivets on later. Maybe I'll find that nail and I'll use it that time. So for these, we're putting them in at an angle because those straps are going to come through there, and we want them out at an angle so that as they come up, they fit our body nicely. And she puts this whole thing, she writes this into the pattern. So we're just going to put these in there so that we want these raw edges to get tucked in under here. Does that make sense? And you want them to be even and tilted a little bit. You also want to remember later, we want to be able to fold these up because we are going to be stitching around this seam to close the whole bag up, right? So we're going to put these in a way where they're close to the edge, but not too close. They're completely being covered up by this strap connector piece. This is thick here, so my pins are really just here to temporarily hold it there. And then I'm going to put this one over here. I try to do them at about the same angle. Just get those nice. These D-rings are bigger than what I should have for this bag. I think these are 1.5 inch. I should have 1 inch. But I didn't have smaller ones. So I'm using the bigger ones, but you can see how they don't quite fill that up. Typically I would like to fill that up. I would like to look nice, but I just didn't have the right size there. But that's okay. It's still going to look good when the bag is done. But if someone's noticing that these are flopping around in there, that's why they're flopping around, because they're a little bit big. Okay, so now we're going to just stitch 1/4 inch down, and we're going to tack both of those in at the same time. So we're going to go over to the sewing machine, and we will, again, use all the same settings. Good. Get that under there. I'm going to use my stiletto to kind of hold it all in place. Excuse me. Okay. All right, so now my pin is there. I don't want to accidentally stitch over my pin. So right now, nothing is holding this in place other than my stiletto. The foot right there is kind of hitting that, but no, the hardware is not going to be stitched over at all. Now I am going to back stitch here over this. I just want to make sure that's nice and secure in there. So I just went right back and back stitched over it. You don't have to do that. That was just what I felt compelled to do because it's really going to hold that strap in place later once the strap is attached. So remember, I was worried that if I put the rivets in now, it might actually affect stitching. That was silly. There's tons of spot there for plenty of room for that. I'm going to stitch back over it again. Again, just make my stitches nice and secure, and then go to the edge. Okay. So we'll go back to the overhead view. I'll show you guys what that looks like. Trimming my threads here. Okay. So, yep. So those are nicely in place there. Again, the straps will go through there. This is the bottom of the back. And we've got that. Those are held nicely together now. So now we're going to put what we're going to do on the top edge is pretty much the same kind of thing. So we've got this one. It's for that top edge. So let's figure out direction and app. Yep, we want it to go this way. So now on the top edge, this edge is the one we're going to stitch down first, and then we're going to put all the goods in here like that. So let's find my notch. Here's my notch there. So I'm going to line this up at the notch. Do I want it? I think that's too far from the edge. Well, so I lined that one up there. I'm going to line it up here like this. I think that'll give us plenty of clearance at the top. And then let me just look really quick. Where's that strap? So the strap would be here, tucked in. I'm going to do it here. So here's my notch. I'm going to line it up there. It's not super duper clear how you line the notch up. So I'm just deciding if I want the notch. Here, let me explain what I'm doing here. So I'm trying to figure out if the notch is supposed to line up with that edge or this edge. I'm pretty sure it's this edge. It's what looks best to me here, but I don't feel like it's clear right now. But I'm also not fully reading over the pattern now because I've done this so many times. So I'm not really blaming the pattern. I'm kind of blaming me not being as accurate. Okay, so the same thing we did on the bottom edge. I'm just putting a few pins in here to make sure it's held down. And then I'm going to stitch using that 1/8 of an inch seam allowance straight across there. Stitch that. Okay. Where is that thread? There we are. Okay. And then this connector strip is going to hold in place the handle. That is the second time. Look at this. Those flower head pins. I've like never had the actual top come off them before. And that's the second one I've done on this video. What is going on? I mean, it must be extra super strong today because those don't normally come undone. I'm wondering if there's like moisture in the air or something. I know I've been using them in this thick cuddle, but I've had these pins for years. Shocking. Okay, so get that taken care of. Cutting. I'm always trimming threads here. Okay. So now we'll go back again to the overhead view. I just keep going back and forth with you guys. All right, so that's stitched down. Now we're going to pull this back, and this is where we're going to put our handle. So we've got our handle piece like this. I kind of like it to look like that. And then in the center, which I have a notch up here at the center, I like on this back of this, I always notch my centers. So then when I go to put the backpack together later, all the layers I know where to match them. So because of that, I have the center right there in front of me. I can see where it is. And so I can put this like this. And now I am going to stitch across this. I don't know if she normally has you baste it, but because these are so thick, I'm going to just baste across before I do anything else. I don't want to accidentally not catch this or do something weird. So I'm just going to baste across that really nicely first. No one's going to see the wrong side of this later. So I'm fine with putting these in here now. The stitches on the back here aren't going to be seen. So whether she asked you to baste it across or not, I'm happy with doing it because nobody's going to know except for us. And I know it's just going to help us keep this in position where it should be. Okay. That way I'm not fighting with that thickness later. It's just, I know it's already at least in with a regular stitch. All right, and then we'll go back over here. And I think that I just stitch that down. Oh no, wait, sorry, I gotta put the strap on. Yep, okay. So this is the fun part because we get to put the straps on. Let me go back to the overhead view. Sorry guys, I thought you were already here. Get the straps. Where are my straps? They're over here. All right, so this is the part where it all comes together. This is like the fun hardware part. It's always my favorite part. Okay, so I'm going to look at this diagram because otherwise I'm always afraid I'm going to get it wrong. So we've got this strap. We want this one to go here and this one to go here, I think. I think that's what we determined. And we have, yes. And then we have this. Oops, nope, I was wrong. It's this one. Yes, this is the one we want. The right side. Yep. Okay, so this one, sorry, I don't have a lot of space here to show you guys. It's getting busy here. All right, so this end here is the end we put that slider in, right? So I'm going all the way down to the raw edge. So that's a raw edge in here. So now I'm taking this, I'm going to put it through here and back up, put it through here. So I'm putting it through the slider, right? Does this make sense? I'm going to put it like that, see? Now this is on the outside edge. And now this is then going to go through the other side of the slider. Like that. And then that would be how you slide the different lengths, right? So you can make it longer, shorter, depending on your person. But then this strap here, this is going to get tucked under here. See? That's going to get tucked away. So now I am going to also baste this one in place right next to that, but let me put the other one on first and then we'll baste them in place together. So I'm going to show you the other one in case that broke your brain. I always have to look at the diagram because I don't want to do it wrong. But we've got our piece here. And remember, the wrong side is this side where we stitch that down. That's the wrong side. I also am going to put some rivets in here, but I'm going to wait till the end to do them because I can still get up and under there and do them. I'm not going to do them now. You guys saw me do rivets. All right, so then this goes down here, this way. Yes, like this. And then like this. So it's not actually the wrong side. It's actually the right side, but the wrong side here because that part's there. So I know that's confusing. See if I can get it flat here. You guys see that? Okay, so went through the ring, came back up through the slider there. And there is bulk here, but trust me, it's going to all look really nice in the end. And then this, it goes down right next to where that handle is. Just like that. Make sure it's all the way in there. Now, see how I didn't meet those exactly there? If I was worried about it sticking out here, I could trim that first. I'm not going to because it's all going to get hidden inside here. But if I was worried about those not meeting perfectly, that's where I could fix it, is right there. So I am going to just baste through these just like I did there. So I make sure that it's all in place before I stitch that top edge down. So I'll go back over to our stitch view just so you can see me do that. Just a quick little basting stitch in there just to secure everything in place. We don't want anything slipping on us later. Hopefully that made sense with those straps. I'm just going to go straight across. It's not going to hurt to go across that handle one more time. And make sure to stitch this in place too. Okay. And then you'll see we will just, let's get these straps out of there. Trim these. Then you'll see we'll just stitch this top edge down and the whole thing will be nice and securely in place. I'll switch over to my overhead view. Let me just clip these threads. And it starts to look like a backpack almost. All right, so let's go overhead. So you start to get these like arms like a backpack back here. This is what we were just working with there. We were trimming that all up. I'm going to just trim that piece a little bit because see how it dips below where it's strapped in. So I'm just going to trim that tiny bit. There's no stitching through here. These aren't my scissors. These are just my snips and they're not going to cut very well. Okay. So now this folds back up just like we did with the bottom. We're now going to fold this on top of all that and we're going to stitch straight across. So everything is nicely stitched in place. You want to be careful that those are not going to cross over each other. You do want them sort of next to each other when you stitch this, but you'll see as we go over, stitch this down. I'm really not going to pin it. Let's see how it goes without pinning. And again, even when I was doing the basting stitch, I really was just using the same width stitch, same length, I should say, sorry, that 3.5 millimeter. I'm going to back stitch. But as I go up in here, I'm going to use that stiletto to make sure that fold is staying over nicely. I'm holding it all in place where it goes. I'm going to do a back stitch here just to make sure I've got that in place. Stitch across here. So see what I mean by I was just basting before? This is actually where everything is. Back stitch a little bit. I like to just make sure that everything is secure in there. Stitching across here again. All right. So now all that back should be good to go. And I just think this is a fun method to get all these goodies on the back for you. See? So now that's nice and secure up there. When you got your backpack straps on, we can tighten these a little bit just to see what it looks like. I just kind of push. When you do tighten and loosen, I just kind of squish it all. See these little straps? These are going to look great. Pull this one a little bit tighter too. There you go. And so that's the backing. And if you've got a big size back, you can, you have these really long straps, so it works for an adult. You can make them smaller for a kid. You can adjust these so they're all the right size. But I love how everything is nice and secure using those panels. Okay, so now the backing is all done. Let's see what our next steps are. I think we're going to start just actually putting the backpack together. And that's where she tells you, you can go two directions. You can either finish by binding. Let me go to this other view here so you can see me. So that we can finish by either binding or finish by turning the backpack. I always call it birthing the backpack because it's like you turn it inside and put it out through that one hole. And I kind of think of it like birthing the backpack. So this is where we're going to be putting the zipper around the edge of the backpack. So we've got the back here, and then we have our fronts here, and we're going to be putting these together with the help of a zipper gusset, it's going to go all the way around. So now is the zipper gusset part. All right, so we have our zipper. Remember we talked about that zipper yardage? We've got this here. So this was that other zipper by the yard. I'm pretty sure I already measured this down and cut it. So I'm not going to do that. I do have 2 zipper pulls for it so that we can open it from either side like that. But I haven't put them on yet. I'm going to hold off on putting them on until I have to, because that way I'm not worried about the them when I am stitching around. And I'm pretty sure she tells us when we have to put them on. Let's see. I'm just going to look now, because if I can wait until to do it later, to me, that's always the best time to do it. So pull them in. Yes, if the zipper pulls aren't done, do it now. So she does tell you when, which is great. I always happy when a designer tells us when to do them. Okay, so we have this piece here is called the zipper gusset. And that's the main piece. This is the main one, because remember, this is our main fabric. And I'm going to show you here what we're doing. Let's go back to the overhead view. And I have direction of nap is going that way. Direction of nap for the zipper gusset isn't as important, because it's the nap really, whether it's going one way or another with the zipper gusset, is fine. I just kind of like it to go this way, if that makes sense. You can see this is longer, but we can trim it. So I'm going to attach this and stitch across, and then I am going to get the lining piece as well. So let me find the lining. Got my 2 lining pieces. Remember, my lining is also that leaf color. So I have a lining back piece. I have a lining bottom gusset, which I'll put over with my regular gusset, and then I have a lining zipper gusset. So I am going to use the wash away wonder tape here. So anybody that was curious about that, we'll see that. This is a place where I do think it's worth using. All right, so try to find a part that's sticky, because the first part wasn't sticky. I haven't used it too much. All right, so I'm going to just down this Cuddle, and I'm just going to put it right to the edge. And yes, Cuddle does, because of the nap, it shifts a little bit, but I've found that the wash away wonder tape still works really well with that, especially these low naps. The 1.5 of the Quilting Cuddle. Remember, this is that Whispering Blooms Quilting Cuddle, same we've already been working with. And the green, the lining is also Quilting Cuddle. All right, so I am just going to line this zipper up right along the edge. And I'm just using that wash away wonder tape to hold it all in place. That's really going to help us here. All right, and then this is what's going to go on the inside. So this is the lining. So now I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put this face down. I'm going to put a piece of the wash away wonder tape there. And then I'm going to put the zipper on top of that. You'll see. So the zipper is going to get sandwiched between these two, between the lining and the main. And then we just stitch it right on. This wash away wonder tape is well within the seam allowance. It does wash away, hence its name. So it's not permanent. It's just a temporary stabilizer. So now I am going to take that zipper. I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to put that zipper. You could baste the first one in place and then do this, but I'm just going to do them both at the same time. I found that wash away wonder tape really can hold the layers in nicely. So I'm just trying to get this lining to match up. And I'm sort of tapping that wash away wonder tape in place so we have it all there. All right, so now we're going to sew across here 3/8 of an inch seam allowance is what the pattern has. So that's what we're going to use. And I'll stick with my 3.5 millimeter because I feel like it's been working pretty well. So that's what I'm going to use for the stitch. All right. Let's go over here. Line it up at 3/8 of an inch. I'm not putting my zipper foot on because of the thickness of the cuddle here. I find that it compensates pretty well. My zipper foot, this walking foot situation that I have here is going over it really nicely. It sort of straddles, this part of the foot sort of straddles that zipper well. You certainly could put your walking foot on here. Your zipper foot on here, especially if you had a zipper foot that can attach to your walking foot. You can see that this main, the lining doesn't have it, but the main zipper gusset does have some of that Decoville light in there. That's DECO, like Deco, and then VIL. You can find that. A lot of quilt shops will have it. If they don't, you can ask them to get it. It's just an extra stabilizer. It's a fusible, so it fuses right on. It's on top of that SF101. So this zipper gusset is nice and sturdy. It's not going anywhere. But it really holds the outside shape of the backpack really well when it's done. So that's why I like to use it. All right. So let me get you up on the screen. All right, I'm going to press this. So let me get you up, pull up that screen. I am going to get my pressing table back up because we're going to press this open. Okay, so remember we had the layers, and then the zipper we want to be on the outside like that, and we want this lining pressed back. Okay, so the lining and the main are going to both press away from the zipper. So what I'm going to do is first press this over in here. This is a metal zipper, so I'm not worried about melting it or anything like that. Depending on what kind of zipper you have, just be careful pressing it. However, if you're using Cuddle, I wouldn't be too worried because if you're actually going to melt your zipper, you probably are going to damage the Cuddle if you have that high of a heat. So I don't worry too much about it because I don't have my heat on that high. But I know some people get nervous when they see me pressing onto the zipper. But again, those teeth are metal. This is a size 5 zipper. So it's a little bit wider teeth. The inside pocket, I used the number 3. Oh, look how pretty that leaf is. Oh, just love it so much. I'm pressing here. I do that just because, I'm doing that just because I don't want any imperfections showing up on my main side. And I am using a little bit more heat. You can see it is pressing out. Like you can see my fingers, you can see all that nap in there. But if it was going to make any issue, it would make an issue on the lining side. Okay, so that looks great there. I am now going to top stitch this into place. It goes through both layers. So it's going through both the lining and the main. Again, I'm not going to pin here. This is very sturdy with that Decoville light in there too. So I'm just going to go stitch this down. Where are we? There we go. Again, even though this is a top stitch, I'm going to do the same settings because I am not worried here. This isn't like really decorative. You can kind of see the stitching. Actually, breeze through this. So I am going about 1/4 of an inch away from this seam allowance. Layers in place. I'm making sure I can feel that back so both layers are pulled back. All right. Go, let's get that trimmed. Yep, and that went through on the green side too. Okay. So now we are going to put the zipper pulls on. So let me get you back over here. Slide this out of the way for a second. We're going to talk about those zipper pulls. All right, so we've got this here. We've got a big extension of the zipper, which we'll just trim off, and then we'll end up trimming that off too. But I'm going to put our zipper pulls on now. But we are going to put them on opposite directions so that they meet in the middle. So they have little tools that you can use to get your pulls on. I'm going to do mine from this end here. So I'm going to put one on like that and the other one on like that. Does that make sense? So they're going to meet in the middle. So this one I'm going to put on like this, and do this. It's a little tricky to get them on. I'm going to, I might have to put it on from the other end actually. Let's see if it'll let me do this way. I normally put one on from one end and one on from the other, but let me see if it'll let me undo this way. It's not letting me do it. So let me do this one first. So I separated a little bit, and then I'm putting it on the way that it's going to close. So I just kind of angle mine in. This is a little tricky. There's lots of information online about how to insert a zipper pull. And I'm not an expert at it. I've done it a million times, but I always struggle. I've got a little zipper pull tool, but I don't love it, to be honest. It doesn't seem to work as nicely as I would like it to. So to get this nice and even in here, I'm actually gonna do this side first. Try to get one in and then the other. You're trying to get them to match up, and you almost need an extra hand here. I've seen people use like a fork tine to hold the zipper pull as well. I just kind of keep pulling these sides and just get it to go in. You guys can see me struggle real time here. Oh, I've almost cut it. It's wanting to go. It's slightly off by one. Here we go. Let's see if I can get this to go. Yep, I think it's going. There we go. Okay, so see how it's slightly bubbled there? I don't love that. So I think what I'm going to do is take this out past here. So when I put this one on, we'll work that bubble out, if that makes sense. So obviously this one has to go on this end. So we've got one that way, one this way. So now I open up this other end, and hopefully I can help fix that bubble. I'm sure you guys, there's some experts out there that are better at this than I am. I just sort of make it work every time. I got that little.
Kathy says, "Don't tell her, Dennis," but she uses her teeth as a third hand to get the zipper pull on.
Kathy, you are my people, because I'm literally like, if anybody, will anybody see if I just duck my teeth under there really quick? Because I do the same thing. So no shame here. I do it too. I'm just refusing to do that on camera and trying to be professional. But thank you for being you.
Right, because we know we all do that, right?
We all do this. I mean, everybody does it, right? People are like, I'm going to go get a fork, and I'm like, I'm not going to the kitchen to get a fork. I'm using my teeth. But
right.
Again, I did do the right thing and buy the tool. I just feel like the tool, it's supposed to be for 3 millimeter, the 3 millimeter width or the 5. And I just feel like it really is only for the 5 and doesn't work for the 3. I don't know. I've had trouble with the tool. So if anybody out there has a tool that they love that works every time, feel free to let us know and we'll use it. But anyway, so see how that works. It goes on and on. I was able to do it without my teeth. Ta-da. But it's not the easiest thing. To me, it's worth the struggle to be able to have the extra lengths. And I just have some spools of some neat zipper around for all the bags I make, so I can just cut to whatever length I need for the project. Like even this length here, when I cut this off, I'll save this because I could do a cool pocket with that later. I can use that scrap. That's a big enough scrap. So we've got our zipper pulls in there. We're good to go with that. And then I am going to just go across here, and I'm going to put some stitches in because I want both of those edges to stay in place. So I'm just going to do that really quick. Now be careful because this is a metal zipper and we are stitching over it, but I'm I'm going to do a
I
couple
was just
slow
going to
stitches.
ask you about that. What do you do? What's your tips and tricks for stitching over the metal teeth?
I just go slow, and really with this 9014 stretch needle, it goes right through it. It's obviously not going through the metal, but it's going like in between the teeth as it does it. But because we're stitching across, it's holding in place. If this was the only thing going to hold it in place, I would really make more of you know, a marking there. If I was worried about the zipper pull falling off at this point, I also would make, you know, probably like a big mound, like a zigzag on a 0 or something, make a big mound to have a fake zipper stop there. But I'm going to be, there's going to be a seam here. So this is all going to be held in place by the bottom gusset in just a minute. So all I'm doing now is just making sure that in the next few minutes, I don't accidentally get those teeth off, not teeth off, get the zipper pull off. Because not that I've ever done that before, but you know, just when I've got it on, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna, and then pull the zipper pull right off. So right now that's holding that in place. I'm gonna trim this and trim that just so it's not sticking out quite so far. You could, you know, burn the edges or zigzag the edges. I'm not gonna bother doing that because these edges, once you cut them, will fray, but I'm going to be securing them when I go around, so I'm not as worried about that. Like I said, you could zigzag or depending on what the zipper is made out of, you can melt it with a lighter or something there. So you're just going to want to test your own zippers and see. Okay, so that's done. Now we're going to put the bottom gusset on, and that's what's going to hold, when we're sewing that to that, that's what's going to hold it in place. And so when we're doing this, we are going to be putting both the lining and the main on, just like we did when we put the lining and main on for this. So let me just see really quick what she has us do. I want to make sure I do it right. I don't want to mess anything up here. So we got the gusset bottom right on top. Hold on one second. Zipper. Edges. 3. Okay, so now what she's having us do is we are just going to sew with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance this main gusset to where the zipper is. We're not going back across here to where the lining is yet, and that's because we don't want to catch this main part with that lining. It'll all make sense later when we're going to put the right sides and wrong sides together, but that's all we're doing for right now is just this step here. But this bottom zipper gusset, I want to make sure I have it going the right way. And so I want, oops, that was my mouse. I want those two edges to meet. See, so double check that. So this is the edge I'm going to pin to here. Does that make sense? So I'm now just going to stitch to where the zipper is. I'm going to put a pin there where I want to stop. We're really just basically going over the teeth and not over the back of that lining there. That's going to help us get it all together later. So let me grab my mouse that fell so I can move you back over to under the thing, the sewing machine, and we'll go back over there. Here we are. Let's get this under there. Is anybody ready to make their own backpack yet? I feel like there's a lot of steps, but it's very well laid out. And so I love, it's one of those challenge projects where it's not fast. I mean, obviously it takes, all the steps take time, but I think all the steps are just so smart that I love showing you how this works. Okay, so now, and I did backstitch, you know, you want to make sure this little bit that I stitched there is nice and secure. Okay, so now we're going to pull that lining up. So right now, these two, this is the main and the main, they're together. That lining is pulled back, and now I'm going to continue to stitch just this main and main together. See that? It's not catching the lining in the back. So I'm going to clip that lining back. Oops, sorry about that. The reason we're doing this is because we are doing that turning the backpack thing. We're not doing the binding the inside of the backpack way. So it's a little more complicated in steps, but it's easy. It's not hard to do. You just have to actually follow her steps. And if you follow them just right, it's going to be gorgeous inside. A binding is fine on a backpack. There's no problem with having a binding on the inside. I just think I like like how clean everything comes out when it's actually done without the binding. I like it without the binding in the end.
And Ajaire, you have the Decoville light on that piece of.
It is. It's on just
too,
the main
right?
piece. So it wouldn't be when we do the lining. Doesn't. It's just SF101. So everything has SF101. Again, if I did this with Quilting Cuddle again, I wouldn't use the SF101 on just those binding pieces that we talked about earlier. But otherwise, everything has SF101. And then the main gusset pieces here, whether it's the bottom gusset or the zipper gusset, and then the back pattern piece, all have that Decoville light added in for extra stability. And that's just giving us the outside frame of the backpack, so it's going to be a nice shape in the back. All right, go back over here. So now see how that is nicely stitched, and then this is still free back here, this lining. So this is beautiful. That's a nice seam there. That looks great. And then we can then go attach this on the other side. So let me just make sure that I'm not skipping any steps here. So lining, short edges. Stitch. Okay, and then we are good to go. So now I'm going to back over to the other side. So now we're doing the same thing over here. We're going to just stitch this there to the zipper with that lining tucked out of the way. We're just going to go from the other direction. Still 3/8 of an inch from there to there. I'm actually going to put a pin where I want to start so we can make sure we don't accidentally catch that backing. Same thing, same 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Take the pin out because we don't want to be stitching over any pins. And again, we're also stitching over that zipper a bunch of times here. So as long as you go slow over that zipper, the zipper can be stitched over. It's not hurting that that needle. Now, could you possibly stitch over it and the needle hits at exactly the wrong spot and it break? Yes, it's possible. I don't think I've ever even had that happen. But yeah, it's possible. Just go slow. So now we've got that other side, and we need to then pull this lining up. And now we're just going to stitch the mains again. So it's the same thing we just did on the other side. We're just doing this other side. So we're making a loop. See how we're making a loop here. Get this in here. All right. And I'm making sure that lining is pulled out of the way. So this is my lining. Nicely pulled out, and then we're just matching that stitch. All right. There we go. Okay. All right, so I didn't get you over to the machine that time, but it was the same thing. We're just stitched across. Everything is just the same thing we've been doing. See how this is a nice tube now? This is that whole zipper part of the bag that'll be attached to the back and to the front. But now we have to make sure the lining goes on. So we're going to do the same thing with the lining. So same thing. We're now going back over here. You could do this one side at a time. Sorry, just trying to get it back over here. All right, so now the same way we did on this side with that, we're now going to do on this side with this. Sorry. And again, I like to make sure my naps are going to be the same. So that one's that way. Yep. All right. So we want this end here. So here.
Ajaire, so many people are now excited to do this. And Jackie on YouTube reminded them to post in our I Love Cuddle Facebook group when they have their bags, because we want to see their bags.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So honestly, that's the best part of this, is seeing how different all the bags are. And I'll post a few of the bags I've made in the past. I know I showed you guys last time the one that I did that has withstood all this time. For my daughter, the black one with all the stitching, with all the gold accents and stuff. But I'll also post some other ones I've made. But yes, think about all the fun backpacks that can be made with Quilting Cuddle. So I just want to say here on this lining part, we're doing the same thing where we are just stitching over the zipper part. You won't be able to get it to meet exactly as the front did. Like, it won't get as close, but you still want to just get as close as you can. You'll see that when we flip this to the other side out, even if your stitches don't go all the way, they're still going to be just as effective. And now we're just going to, from here out, try to match up that lining. So there will be a tiny gap here, but it's nothing major, and it's not going to, like, nothing's going to fall through it or something. The gap is going to be completely sealed up later, you'll see. So I'm going to actually try to access it from the top edge. This is going to be easier if I do this from the top edge, and you'll see why in just a second. I'll show you. So we're going to stitch down here like this and just try to meet like here where the stitching ended for there. That means there's going to be a gap there, but you'll see when we turn it that that's not going to matter. But this will be the easiest way from this direction to stitch it. All right. Let's get you close in here. Again, I'm just trying to get as close as I can. You don't want to get too close, because if you catch the wrong thing, it's not going to look as nice. So I'm just trying to get in there without going too close. So get you back over here so you can see what I just did. All right, so these are now turned, like this one edge is turned right side out. So you can see here that there is a little bit of a gap under there, but there's no way you could really even get in there. You can see the stitching, there's a gap there, but nobody sees it from here, so it's fine, and it's on the inside. This one was sewn completely. So now we're just going to, all we've got is that one side to do. We're going to attach, sorry, where am I? So we attached it there. I need to attach it here. Let me just make sure there. It's this way, like that. Yes, because then that's going to go back. Sorry, my brain. All right, so we are going to stitch over just the part on the zipper. Remember, we did just the zipper part first, just like we did in the front. And then we will continue on as much as we can. So just do this. Just trying to get as close to the zipper as we can to attach that on. And then we will stitch up the rest of this way. We'll go over to the sewing machine view so you can see it again. All right. I love stitching on this leaf color. I think it's so pretty. It's like the best green color. I'm a big green person anyway. I know a lot of people, green's not their favorite, but I love greens, and I feel like they've done such a good job with the green colors lately with Shannon. Every time Julie shows on the Cuddle Showcase, another green, I'm just like, yay, another green. There's been quite a few lately. So I've been very happy with all my greens lately. Okay, we're just, again, trying to get as close as we can, not too close. There will be a gap, but it's not going to show, just like on the other side. All right. You can hear those jingly zipper pulls. All right, so now we've got our full tube here. We've got the outside and we've got the lining. See that? So it's all nicely stitched together, but these edges are still free to be able to sew down to the to do the lining and the main pieces. So you'll see what I'm saying. Just a second. Okay, so now you'll see also, like, see how those are separate there, and then it's just, yeah, there you go. So you can see that. On the zipper side, it says to baste these together. So just right here, see that there? Just on the zipper side, we're going to keep these together. These don't need to be separate here. This is the part that we want to be separate. So these two, we're just going to baste across that. And I'm not going to baste, you know me, I'm just going to do a regular stitch at this point. But we're just going to go through this. And I'm basting them together just to make sure they're caught. So I'm not even going to pin. I'm just going to line them up. Get these to go through. And then we're going to start putting the actual whole bag together. It's where it starts getting very exciting. It's also where it starts getting a little treacherous because all the layers and stuff, but it's still very exciting. And I promise it's going to come out great. Okay. So now that's nicely stitched down. And all we have open are these parts here are wide open. Even where the zipper area is, it's still wide open, which is great. It's a really nice way to do a bag. It makes it very easy to do this turning method. Some patterns I've seen with the turning method, it gets really, really tight in some spots. But this, because this is wide open here, it's not as tight. And so it makes it really nice to do with Cuddle. Even with the thickness of Cuddle, it works out just fine. So let me get all my pieces here. They're all going to end up being together. So everything, when we start getting everything out again, I'm going to move this iron down just so it's not in the way. Here's all of our pieces. Remember, we did all this work. We've got our back, got our front, that front pocket, just like that. All right, so we have the front panel, the lining zipper pocket, and then we've got this gusset. And this is what we're going to deal with first. We're going to put the back just to the side for now. That'll be the last piece we do. So remember this pretty front we have. This is what we're going to be working with now. All right, so this is the hole we're going to turn through later. So we got to make sure that the zipper is open. So if that zipper is open, it doesn't do us any good that we left that hole, right? So make sure the zipper's open. We're going to turn the whole bag through there later. All right, so this says to mark everything, but what I've said before is that I mark on my pattern pieces. I do these notches around on all of the different pieces so that I know where they all match up, which is super helpful. So I put the zipper part of the gusset is what's going to attach to the front. So it's going to look like this. That's the part, and then this part here is going to get attached to the back of the bag. So what I do need to find is the middle of this piece. So we have those two, like this is the bottom gusset, and I do have a notch there. So that part's notched. And there's a notch there, so that part's notched. But up here, I have a notch here, but I don't have one in the zipper. So I'm just going to put a pin right there, so just so that I know where that center part is, because we want to make sure everything's pretty well centered. I'm just going to slide this down so it's out of my way. All right, so this is now going to go up here. It's on the main part. Just want to look and see if I'm going to go through both of these layers or just through the one. Is that okay? Both edges of the meat, separate side of the gusset. Okay. Then hold on, I just want to make sure this is right. So I feel like I put that on now, but I think that she's saying to save it. Okay, so we are going to just sew that part to the lining. Okay, so we're just doing, so the lining is just going to go put that out of the way for a minute. Again, I just want to verify so that I'm not leading you guys astray. I'm going to have this zipper on top. So I'm going to be pinning from the top, and this is where I am going to use more pins because we're needing to be more careful here. This is, this is going to show on the outside of the bag. So we're going to pin. I'm going to come by and do this bottom notch first with this bottom part there. Just try to line everything up. You can also use, actually, I might use clips here. This might be a good spot for clips. And then at these edges, I kind of put a pin or two or clip at the edges. It gets very thick. Remember, we put a whole bunch of features on this front here. Right. Just kind of, I will probably add more pins as we go along. I put some of these backwards facing like we do with stuffed animals sometimes. That holds it in place pretty well there. I do want to make sure that the where the bottom gusset and the zipper gusset meet is kind of in the same spot on both sides. It's just a decorative thing that I would like to see match. So I am going to put that in place and then go check on the other side and make sure they're about the same width. It doesn't have to be exact, but eyeballing, when you see this, you're going to want to make sure like those two look nice just for presentation, right? And we are going to pin this all the way. See, this is what's nice. This is the part that you would be binding, and I don't love doing the binding through all this thickness. So I like being able to just do this method. Okay. And now I'm going to pin more from this side. We're really just putting pins all the way around. I'm just trying to go slow with them and figure out where the pins need to be. I will move these zippers, the zipper pulls as we go. So I am going to start over here and then get past them, and then we don't have to think about them again. Because that's the problem with having the zipper pulls on, is that we have to avoid them, right? We don't want to, I don't want to use my zipper foot here. So it's harder to get by the zipper pulls without the zipper foot. And it gets a little tight here, so I'm just making sure I've got all those pins in. There we go. Lots of pins. Actually, I'll use a clip here too with all that thickness. But trust me, the machine will make it through. I've done this before and it's worked just fine. Just got to make sure you're taking care of to catch all the layers. All right. Almost there, and then we'll start stitching. And I'll use that same 4mm because it's going to be so thick that it's actually going to take longer to get through and around. So it won't end up being some giant 4mm stitch. It'll actually be much more narrow. You saw with my machine how it ends up being much smaller. So depending on your machine, you'll just figure out what is going to work best, what stitch will make your machine happiest. We want to keep the machines happy. There we go. Okay, So let's go stitch this on. Now this says to stitch this on with 1/4 of an inch. So let me I'll show you what we're going to do. So place me. This is actually saying 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So this is basically just trying to get the front onto the back. So clip the corners, this will lay flat. Okay, so this is really just trying to attach it on there. So I'm not really going to do 1/8 of an inch. It's probably going to be more like 1/4 of an inch. But the key is that we're really just trying to get it on there. This is not the full seam allowance right now that we're trying to do. We're just tacking it together, tacking these layers together. And you'll see when we go to put the lining on in a minute, that's what's really going to tack all the layers through here. So we're just trying to get around this whole thing, getting it all nicely together. So there, I'm going to back stitch here, and then I'm going to take this off so I can move those zipper pulls. I started on this side so that I could just slide these down and not have to worry about it. So now I can be a little bit more accurate here. Get back under there. And again, with all this thickness, don't let the thickness scare you away. We're just going slow and it'll work out just fine. Zigzag again. I'm just going slowly with like 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. You can use your stiletto here. Pull this over. Really get that in under there. Got a little bit shorter. I'm following the zipper tape at the 1/4 of an inch, but you can see the outside edge there is growing just a little bit. And I'm okay with that because it's going to look really nice. And I'm not using my zipper foot, so it's not getting as close to the zipper as I normally would. So there's more room there to play with, if that makes sense. Normally the zipper part would be showing less, but I like the zipper showing because I think it's pretty. It's a decorative zipper. So when this is done, I'll show you what I mean by that, like just the thickness there of the zipper. All right, we're going all the way around here. That's one of those zippers there that I'm going over. So I do kind of, even though this is just tacking it or basting it on, basically, I do like to just kind of go over that zipper teeth a couple times to make sure it's all good. Just going through all the layers. Make sure everything's in place. Oh, there, I broke a zipper there. I mean, it's not a zipper. It broke the needle there. What did I do? What did I go over? I think it's just the thickness. I broke that needle. We'll just put a new needle in. Here, let me find the needle first. I didn't go over a pin or anything. I think it was just the thickness of it. I went a little bit too fast. There's not a zipper there either. I'm off camera right now, but I was basically just digging around for that little piece of the needle. I don't want that to get caught in there. So that's the head of the needle, but I think the shaft is still in there. You feel? Yep.
I'm so glad that happened to you too.
Yes. And again, this is it's an older machine. It's not super fancy. It's just making it do things it doesn't want to do. And I did this, again, this was a brand new needle. So it is, it's not because the needle was old and dull. It's just, this happens. So let me find here's my needles. I'll get my new one out and put it back in, and then we'll go again. My fear was that I had stitched over a pin or something, but I didn't. It really just was the thickness there. Remember, we're going over quite a lot of Cuddle and stabilizer and all sorts of things in there. So
Yeah. How many
So
layers do you think you have?
oh man, I don't even know there because of the SF-101 and the Decoville light in parts of it, it's quite a bit because things are folded over there too.
Right.
We've got, that's right here, you can see we've got the zipper. We've got 2 layers there because this is where that binding was. So we had all that binding in there. So I just wasn't going slow enough to go over that binding. I really didn't even clock that that binding was there. So I should have just gone slower, and I know better than that with my machine. This machine is a good machine. It does well for me, but it's not heavy duty fancy one. So
well, but I think it's a good reminder that
of
for
course
all of us that you can
we can all do it.
slow,
Yep,
right?
we can all do it. And if you break a needle, you just put another one in, right? It just happens.
Exactly.
So, but that is also, you'll see we can get through this. So we'll just go slow right there with that bulk. I'm just going to go a little bit slower this time. Like I said, I forgot that right there was where the layers come together. So that's very thick there. And so see how the machine, it almost wants me to hand crank right there. Now don't worry, we are not then adding the backing to this piece. So we're not adding more layers. Like see how my machine fights there? It just gets upset because it's going through so many layers. But it's fine. I can still hand crank through it. And we are going to be adding one more layer to this afterward. We're just adding that that lining layer here. But all the backing and all that we have with the strap connector and all that, that's getting attached to the other end of this zipper gusset part. So we just need to get a little bit more through here and we'll be fine. Like I said, I've done this with C3 and even with some Luxe and it's worked out just fine. So it's just a matter of going slow in these thicker parts. But that's what it would look like if you did stitch over a pin or something. I've definitely seen people do that. So we're just being careful, or at least I'm being more careful now, right? Okay. All right, almost there. I'm just going to pull this up here because I do want to pull this over. See how this right now, that lining, there we go. Now it's flat. I was just not going to be catching it as nicely as I would have liked. So I pulled those pins out and I just redid that one part there. So there is a hump here too. So I'm going to use my stiletto to help push it down. So I'm pushing the fabric flat, really compressing it. And then as we're coming back to where these are, I am going to just move them further down. So I'm not worrying about those zipper pulls there. And then that other end, we already tacked that in, the other end of the bound part. That's where we started before. So there we go. All right, so we made it all the way around. Now let's get that lining part on there and then we'll be good to go. I'm just going to give a quick preview here of what's going on. So now we're looking down into the front. This will pull back later like that. But I'm looking down in and we didn't do the full seam allowance. We really just were trying to get this all tacked into place. Let me trim all these little threads here because now we're going to put the lining on the same thing. And so the lining, when we do the lining, we're going to do the full 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So for this, I am going to open up this zipper. And this part here can just get like tucked out of the way. So I can get really in here. I'm going to actually clip some of these zipper seams. See how that zipper is pulling? I'm going to release some of the zipper seams to where that stitching is, just to kind of let it relax. You could do it through the edge there too, through the cuddle too, but the cuddle's fine. I'm not that worried about that. I just want to release that zipper a little bit to make it, things will lie a little bit flatter.
So are you just snipping along the zipper tape rather than
Just the
into the
zipper
cuddle
tape.
tape?
Yep, just the zipper tape to where that little line of stitching is. And remember, we're going to do our actual stitches past there. So all that's doing is it's letting it lay a little bit flatter. It's just giving it some relaxing there. And I really only do it along the curve. I'm not as worried about it down there. Just along that curve, it's going to be nice and flat so that I can put this lining down on it, and it should work really well. It should like just get out of the way of itself. So when I put this on here, it'll be nice and flat.
Nice. Okay.
All right. So now remember, this pocket is going to come through here later. So I am now going to put this completely over this whole thing. So that whole zipper part, I'll squish it all in, and we're going to stitch this all around and then pull this whole thing out through this hole. Now this is just the front and the zipper. It's not the back, but the way this part works, that's how it comes out through there. So let me just pin this together. I will actually probably mostly use my clips. So I am adding one additional layer to this, but I'm able to take the zipper gusset away from most of the edge of it. So the zipper is like not right next to it anymore. So it works a little bit nicer here. All right, so just keep pinning this around, same thing. Now, when I do this one, I'm going to try for that full 3/8 of an inch seam allowance this time. Just going to make sure I'm getting all the layers. It's a big test in like getting all your layers, all through the layers. So when I get over here, I'm really going to have to be careful. And in fact, when I get to here, I will probably move the zipper pull and remind myself to stop and really work through those layers. So just, again, we're not using tons and tons of zippers. I'm just trying to get everything where it should be, and then we can manipulate it as we go along. This is the lining now attaching to the whole front, including the zipper gusset is also here. See, it's even bending that pin.
Ajaire, I know we kind of talked about this earlier, but Audrey was asking, do you ever clip instead of pin?
Yep, and I have been doing a couple of clips here, especially when it's this thick. Most of my big clips are put to the side right now, and so I've just been using some pins. But when I'm pinning, you'll see I'm not actually pinning all the way through. I'm really just pinning through like the top layer, because remember, this whole section here is all together already. So I'm just kind of pinning through to where the tape is, the zipper tape. So I'm not jamming through the whole sandwich there. But yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of times we will use clips, especially in a circumstance like this, because it's so thick. But it's really, you could use all clips if you wanted to. You don't have to use pins. I just feel like I'm a little more accurate with pins, but yeah, it's totally up to you. All right, trying to get this back over here. Just trying to kind of crush it down where that zipper is, because it's taking up so much bulk in there. Sorry, keep grabbing just the pocket and not this. Here we go. This is what the layer I want. We're just shoving all that in there because we're not trying to sew through all that bulk there, if that makes sense. So it probably is a good place to use clips, because you're just trying to get everything flat in there so that we can stitch around this whole thing. And what I like to do is, if I feel like I'm not catching everything exactly the way I want to catch it, I'll do this one pass at the seam, using the full seam allowance, and then I can always go back in and clean up any of the areas that might not have caught as well as I wanted to, because we have, because we can, right? I mean, we can just go back across it, and this is going to be all on the inside, and no one's going to see any of these stitches later. And the thickness of the cuddle and all the fluffiness would sort of hide any wonky seams. So I do have the opportunity to kind of go back in and straighten things up if I want to. Okay, I am going to start stitching at this corner and start going all the way around. And I may pause to move the zipper pulls out of the way if I feel like they're in the way as we go. But let's try to attack this guy. And by attack, I mean we're not going to break another needle. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. So you see how this is a big bunchy bundle under here? All that zipper is kind of bunched under in this part. If you were doing the big backpack, you don't have as much of the bunch here. But I want to do this bottom edge first, because once I get up to this top, it's very thin. So I just want to kind of get this bulk out of the way first. Some people might want to start at the other end. I just like, and actually I should say, this seam isn't thick. It's just bunchy because that zipper is right next to where this presser foot is. Not the zipper gusset, I should say. So I'm just using that same stitch. I'm actually going to go down to 3.5 for this, because this is the permanent stitch. This is the stitch that's going to hold the bag together on the front here. So I am going to go back to a 3.5 millimeter, even though that 4 millimeter was probably going to end up being, you know, much smaller, like a 3.5. But I just think I'm going to be safer shortening my stitch here just to make sure I've got everything. And I'm going slow. I'm just going to go through all those layers. I did add a layer here, right? We added a layer of lining and a layer of that SF101 that's attached to the lining. So just doing that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And as we come to the corner, I'm just going to pivot slightly and just kind of try to go slow and try to get that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance as nice as I can with a rounded corner. And then continue. I can feel with the stiletto right here, I can feel where it's going in. Take that clip out. Now I'm getting to the side seam. Starting to hit the zipper here. So that means that zipper pull is close. So I'm going to back stitch here for a second just so I can see where we are. Yep. As I tried to back stitch twice, I got angry. So I'm just going to open this up really quick. I want to see if that zipper pull is there, and it's going to be a problem. And it's not going to be a problem. I'm just kind of pushing. I just want to show you guys. I'm just kind of pushing things out of the way more now that we've gone around that bottom. So I'm going to push that out of the way, and then pinning that again, and then we'll get started again. So my machine wasn't freaking out because I hit the zipper pull. It was freaking out because of the thickness again. That's all that was, because that is where the gussets meet, and so it's very thick there, if that makes sense. All right, so
Ajaire, would you recommend raising your presser foot a little bit if you can?
You can. You could also raise, and mine can't. That's part of the issue, is that it thinks that it's up. It thinks it's in the up position, so it shouldn't be sewing. So it's kind of a safety error thing. Like if your presser foot's not up, you shouldn't be sewing because it's not secure. But mine is down. It's just too high up, if that makes sense. So yeah, you can lessen your foot pressure. You can raise your presser foot if it allows you to go up and down. Some machines do that. Most machines will go through this no problem. Mine's just a little bit whiny about it, but guess what? It still works, right? So that's all that matters, is it's going to look great in the end, and it will work. So let's get around this corner. And there is the zipper here, and there's a metal zipper here underneath. So we're just going slow. Make sure we take out our pins as we go. It's like all the things that you're afraid of stitching with all at once, right? You don't want to hit any pins. You don't want to hit any zipper teeth. You don't want to have too much thickness. But if you go slow, it's no problem. And again, if you are doing the bigger backpacks, there isn't as much bulk here as there is, because it's spread out, if that makes sense. Like the bulk here is the same, but this puffy bulk that we're kind of fighting against with the stuff stuffed in the bag is distributed better. Hopefully that makes sense. It's just because we're making the really cute purse version, or it doesn't have to be a purse. It could be a little kid's backpack too. I like to make the medium-sized one for my youngest and the large for my oldest. But I thought this size would be really cute. It works as a great, like a purse for traveling. Okay. Again, we're going over some zippers here. Those sideways zippers that we had from before. Front zipper and the lining zipper. All right, we're almost back. And that zipper pull there. Just kind of trying to feel everything out. Squish it all down. Squish it all down. And that's that thickness there. So just make sure the machine doesn't get too angry right when it comes to this corner. There we go. All right, it made it that time. Okay, so now let's go. I'm going to look and see if we got it all right. And if we didn't, we'll talk about how we can fix that. Here we are. Okay, so we went around the whole backpack. The way I check it is I just look here and I think, did I get everything? And yep, everything is caught. But let's flip to the back. So now remember, we've got several stitches here because we've put different layers together at different times. But what I want to see is, did I make it all the way around with this new stitch further out from any of the other ones? And the answer is yes. You can see they're not the most gorgeous stitches you've ever seen. They're a little bit wonky. They look more wonky because, again, there's several layers of stitches that I did different things. But it looks like I got everything with that one stitch. So unless I'm missing things in the middle, like, you know, missing them from the layers, I think I'm good to turn this out. So I'm just going to turn this. And you could clip the seams and stuff. I'm not bothering with any of that. I'm just going to pull the panels and gusset through the opening. Let's get all that out. Again, this is like the birthing the backpack part. So we're going to get it all through. This is the pocket opening that I'm pulling it through here. And it does really look like, you know, birthing a bag. All right. And once we get it through here, then we'll check to make sure everything's going to function correctly with the zipper and all that stuff. What's going on here? Push it through.
So this, we're turning this through the pocket that was in the lining that we made sure that the zipper was undone, right?
Yep, the zipper was undone and then this bottom was left open. So that was that pocket that was left open. So that's the pocket opening. We will stitch across there and tuck it back in at some point. But for now, before we do that, because we've got to make sure it's correct, because we could flip this back and correct any stitches if we had to. So we're just turning everything out, making sure everything's caught. I see some little threads there that I'd want to clip. And I could go in and get them better if I wanted to. There we go. So you just want to make sure everything's been caught, kind of pull at where these, see where this zipper is here? I like to make sure, you know, everything's clipped there. This there. This is the front of the bag. So I'm just looking, does it look good? Would I want to get closer? And then this is the inside of the bag. And then that pocket here would tuck into there. And then this is that front of the bag. That zipper could be closed. This is the front of the bag. Now let's make sure this zipper is going to function. Does this zipper work properly? And it does. So the whole front of the bag now, kind of look at it and we think, you know, is this nice? I haven't pressed anything. I'm not like making the perfect shape yet. I'm just making sure everything's caught, because I could go back in there and if I wanted to make that cleaner, make sharp corners better, I could. If I had missed anything, like let's say I missed a layer in here and it was poking out, I could go back in and tuck under. If I had missed catching that there. I could go back and fix it. Same thing with over there, but everything looks to me like it's good. Pockets all work. Everything looks good. So now all we need to do is the back. So that's done, and it's just the backing put on. So it's pretty cool how that works there. This whole front assembly is all now done. And even though that looked complicated because I, was going so slow and pausing, it's really not. I've done ones that are much, much more complicated, and it gets tricky in some parts. And I just feel like it's a great way of putting this bag together. Okay, so now this is now going to be attached to the backing. So let's figure out how that part happens. We're almost done here, guys. Okay. We have the backing panel, and we've got the backing lining. And let's see, pull the main and the lining. So now this is the main. Remember, this main and lining zipper gusset are still separate. See, there's still two pieces all the way around. See, isn't that cool? After we do all this, there's still two separate pieces, which is really interesting because a lot of times with the construction, that's not the case. I can't remember if we're going to go through this hole in the end or not. I don't think we are, but I'm going to leave that unzipped just in case, because that's actually, I think we go through this. I think I leave that unzipped, but well, it'll tell us. Anyway, main and lining, separate them again. And so we got those out. And then the next part is we're going to take the lining. So this is our lining here. And we didn't put any pockets in this lining. We didn't put, there is a slip pocket if you wanted to. I didn't bother with that. I think this nice inside pocket on the front is plenty, but you could do that. And then you just match this all the way around. Remember, this is just one layer. This is just the thin lining. All right, so we'll do that all the way around. Lining at the corner points. So I'm just checking here because I want to see what it comes through in the end. Opening the back panel. Zipper pocket. Okay, so for this one, we should be turning it through the back panel zipper pocket, but I didn't do the back panel zipper pocket. So let me think about what we want to do instead for this. Because on this back, there is an optional zipper pocket back here, which I didn't do. And I've not done it in the past. So I know there's a way to do this, but let me just think. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let us turn it through the lining in a part, and then we can stitch it up later. But I just wanted to read ahead because I forgot. They want us to do it through there. Same way we turned through this pocket, she wants us to turn it through that pocket, but I didn't make that pocket. So this is what we'll do instead. It's totally fine. So we're going to do this. We're only going to, on the bottom edge here, I'm going to leave it unstitched for just a little bit so that we can turn it through there if we need to. I am pinning on the gusset part, not on the back panel piece, or the lining piece. I'm pinning on the gusset side. So I'm going to stitch with the gusset facing up. And this is just the lining gusset right now. And I'm just going to go all the way around. We're tacking this on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance for this part only. And then we'll do the back. And we will just turn it through this opening in the lining. I forgot that we used that back panel back zipper to pull it through on this side, but that's fine. We don't want to do that back panel zipper for this one because it's so teeny tiny backpack. I didn't need one more back zipper in there, and one more pocket. I do love that zipper pocket when on the big bag though. I think it's a really fun pocket, but I didn't want it for this little bag. So these are the things you have to kind of think about ahead of time. And I printed out only the pages that I needed for the steps I was doing. And what I probably did was printed out pages for if you are doing that zipper pocket. So I'm sure that there are instructions for if you didn't, and I just didn't print those ones out. So I'm not worried about it at all. This will work out just fine. I guarantee if you actually followed her instructions properly, then you wouldn't be having the problem I'm having now. So just follow her instructions. I am going to leave a gap right here. I'm going to do an L bracket and leave that gap open for turning later. This is probably something you won't have to do if you had followed the instructions and not listened to me.
So this is where you get in trouble, right? You've gone rogue.
Of course. I've done this so many times. I'm like, I don't need that back pocket. I'll do this. I'll do that. And so, yeah, it's fine. It'll work out just fine. And like I always say, the nice thing about the Cuddle is that when we go to stitch this whole shut later, it's not going to be hard at all. It's going to be super easy. All right, so let's just stitch this on. Like this part, we're actually doing what she says to do. I'm stitching it on, except for I am going to leave this section open. So I'm going to do an L bracket here where I stitch down. An L bracket is just stitching from the edge of the fabric down. We're only supposed to do about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here, so I'm not going to make it a huge L bracket, just, you know, that 1/4 of an inch is enough. And then work my way around. This is similar to what we did on the front, where we're not doing the whole the actual seam allowance here. We're just using that 1/4 of an inch to keep these two pieces together here. Have to be a perfect seam here. It's just meant to kind of like basting it almost. I mean, it's permanent stitch isn't the real deal here. As you go around. The nice thing here is that we don't have the zipper to contend with. The zipper is on the up of this gusset. It's flat and it's catching. So it's not as much bulk either because everything's sort of pushed away from the gusset here, which is what is nice about it. The reason we do a gusset is to kind of give the space to get everything together without it being jammed under the machine. It really allows us to tack it under there. Just working my way around. And I'm doing it with the back lining piece facing up underneath, and the zipper gusset, bottom gusset loop is on top here. So I'm just kind of manipulating that to fit the curves of that bottom piece. Go. We're almost done here, guys. Thanks for hanging in. I know this has been a little bit longer, but we are almost done, and I know you guys are going to want to see that finished bag. It is coming together so nice. There we go. And if you wanted to do that zipper back, it's a super easy pocket. It's pretty much the same pocket that we put in the front zipper of the front lining. Same type of like gusset zipper, not gusset zipper, welt zipper. Just got all the pieces in there in the pattern for you. It's super easy to do. It's a cute sideways zipper pocket, so it's definitely worth trying if you wanted to do it that way. But I know there's a way to birth this without having to worry about doing that pocket. So, okay, so we've got that lining is in now, and that's been stitched all the way around. And that's nice. So now we're going to get ready to put this backing on. Before I do that, see these floppy edges that are kind of hanging over the edge? That's where we attached it, and I don't need these. So I'm just going to trim these off. I'm not being perfect here, just trying to get some of that bulk out of there. It's okay to have some of it overhanging, but I don't need all of that in there. I'm just trimming that off. And then I want to put this onto the main gusset. So the back, see how the back is going to attach to the main gusset? Now, let me just make sure, because I did go rogue here, that if I do that and we turn it through here, nope, not through there, that's the, turn it through here. Let me just see what's in here. I don't know if this is going to. Does this come out somewhere? No. Let me see. Might need to do it through the zipper. Just trying to figure out how I'm going to get us back to where we need to be. So this is open here. So that's just opening up into there. Okay, so that doesn't open up to anywhere. Although it does open up to here. There we go. Okay. I think I just figured it out. Sorry, guys. I'm here going, wait a second. So I opened up the zipper, the main zipper, and it does open up to this hole. So if I stitch this onto the main and this whole thing is closed up and all through this hole from that main zipper. So it should work. Let's just put this on here and we'll give it a whirl and see if it does, because this is the last thing we're doing, guys. We're stitching it all the way around here through here. 100% the way the pattern said to do it, but this is going to work, and it's our way of getting around having that back pocket. So as I do this, I am just going to make sure we don't want any of these straps or anything getting caught. Those are already fully secure in there. They're not meant to be secured in this step. And actually, I'm going to want to pin this direction because I want that back to be flat, right? I always say I want that curve to be flat on the bottom. So we're doing it from the zipper gusset of the main down to the back of the main, just like this. And it's not going to be as much bulk as we had when we did that fronts, all the fronts together, but this is definitely a little bit of bulk here though, so it's not nothing. So let's do this. All right, and I have where everything's supposed to meet. So, okay, yep, just pinning this around. Again, the zipper, we don't have to worry about the zipper here. None of that stuff. Right. That's meeting nicely there where the gusset should meet. The gusset, this whole thing is the gusset, but the bottom gusset. Now I'm going to go back around this way. So I'm going back around. Almost finished, guys. Hopefully you guys can see me as I'm pinning this. I'm kind of hugging it to myself a little bit, so I know it might be a little bit off camera. I'm just trying to get all these pins in there. Again, this is a good place to use your clips if you've got them. Almost there, guys. Yep, that's meeting nicely there. So everything's still matching up exactly where it's supposed to match up, which is exciting. Shove all this into the bag. And this is going to be super fun trying to get it all back out again, right? Went through that one hole back here in the lining. All right, so.
And how, Ajaire, as you're stitching, how do you keep those straps out of the way? Like, how do you?
They're just in, I just tucked them inside, and because of the way I'm pinning, the pins are on, like the straps are on the other side of these pins. So they can't really get through even if they wanted to right now because of these long pins. Okay. If I wasn't pushing it down inside before, then I would be more worried about it, but they're just not really any way for them to get in the way now because these pins are so long and they're in there. But yeah, you just gotta kind of pay attention as you're stitching around to make sure nothing's getting caught like that. Because remember, we've got those buckles and everything is inside the bag right now. There's nothing, nothing else is going on this thing other than some rivets I might attach later on after we're done here. Because I'll add some more rivets here and there. But yeah, this is everything. So again, this thickness now is not as thick as we did that front because it's really just the 2 layers. And then in a couple spots, it's a few layers where you've got those connectors. But this should be much easier to sew than that last one. I'm still going to go slowly because I don't want to accidentally mess up. But everything should be nice and flat and should sew around pretty easily. So let's go back to the machine and get these last stitches done. I am going to go all the way around. I'm not going to leave any gaps or anything here, because we should be able to, if I've calculated this right in my head, which I'm not going to say I've never done incorrectly before, because again, this is Rogue. This isn't exactly what she has you do in the pattern. So as long as I've calculated everything correctly, we should be able to turn this right side out through that lining. But I'm going to go slow, because then this bulk here, there's not bulk in the seam allowance, there's just bulk here to the side. So I want to make sure I'm getting a nice smooth stitch without any hang-ups, because all of that wants to be in the way right there. So I'm just kind of pushing it to the side. I'm just going to go slow. Lots of stitches. You can kind of turn. I use my stiletto to just sort of flatten here. Then I'm going to turn again. And we're getting to the side seam here. If I can just, when you have that Decoville light in there, it is adding structure to the bag, but it's also making it tight to get around the corners and stuff here, because it has structure. So it's not wanting to push out of the way like I want it to. So you just have to kind of go slow and make it do what you want it to do. But the whole point is it's doing what we want it. It's there for structure, and it's giving structure. So it's doing what it's supposed to. I'm just trying to get it to do something else. So I'm going to shift it over there, because it shifted out of the way. Okay, there we go. This part here is nice and flat, so that should look good. And remember, this is not the lining right now. This is the main to the main. So you really want to take care that your stitches are going to look nice, because this is the stuff that's going to end up for real on the outside of your bag. This is the for real, for real. All right, I am just going to, there's some bulk right there that I want to try to push out of the way. Don't even know exactly what it is right there. It might be the, oh yeah, that's the strap right there. So I can't really push it out of the way, but I don't want to catch it in the stitching. So I can feel it's right there. It's not going to catch. I just don't want it to cause my presser foot to not want to go. So I'm just going to go slow. Now turn, and I can push this bulk out a little bit more. You got to kind of use your muscles a little bit with this part, because you're flattening down with the stiletto as you go. Right, and then those tight corners at the top are the trickiest parts, because all of those straps and everything are there, and they're wanting to get in the way. Go. Almost there, guys. Almost there. Now I'm just going to push these straps out of the way. But you can see how that Decoville light has structure, and so it's not bending to my wills as nicely as the SF101 or just the Quilting Cuddle does. It has a mind of its own, which again, it's supposed to, so I can't blame it. Right. Just shift this out of the way. Making sure it's that strap again. So I might I'm actually going to release this and then start at one spot again, because I'm going to get a better angle if I stop and start it. I'll show you guys what I mean. Okay, so I sewed off there because this right there was pushing against my presser foot too much. So now if I come from up here, I can hit that seam allowance just right, and it's going to look nicer on the outside. That's just because there's bulk there from the strap. And again, in the bigger sizes, the straps are further away from the edge here. So it's not, there's not as much bulk right there from where the straps are attached. But I think it's worth doing the small one because I think it's just such a cute little bag. So these are just things you have to take extra time for. Okay, here's where we're getting down to the squishy bottom part where it's thick again. So we're gonna make it do our bidding. And then release it. Make sure it's nice and flat there. So come around the corner. Oops. My goodness, you guys, another pin. I am wondering if there's something to do with the humidity or something. What is going on? I've never ever had these clover pins do this. I mean, I know we're going through some layers and everything here, but my goodness, I've never had these pins break apart. These are the ones we always recommend because they don't break apart. So has anyone else had any trouble in weather or something? Maybe it got too cold. These aren't even the ones I travel with. These are the ones that stay here in my studio. So that is just bizarre that I've had 3 now today with you guys. That is odd. And I've sewn a lot harder things than just this with those pins, and they've been fine. So I am just very surprised by that. All right, so let's get back to the beginning. And this is another spot where we are going to take a look at the stitching before we turn it through, because I can make any minor repairs now if we need to. And, you know, I could always say like, oh, I'm not going to look, and we'll just pretend everything's fine, but I do want to look because I can start again here if I want to. Okay, so we've got the curves going pretty well there. Everything caught. Let me just look on this side. Yep, it looks good. And you can see these stitches are not perfect, but what do I always say with Cuddle? That's the nice thing, is that with Cuddle, it's not really going to matter in the end because it's all going to look good. All right, so this is a very small opening to pull this whole thing through. So we're just going to do our best to get it all the way through. I might have to make it a bigger opening because I don't know if it's going to work to get it all the way through here. Might want it a little bit bigger. So I'm just pulling it all through. And let's just hope it all works the way I think it's going to. Actually. And then I'll show you just how we would quickly stitch up the holes. This is always the ugliest part, is trying to get the whole thing through. There's systematic ways of doing it. You can reach in and try to grab big pieces out. I'm going to make that opening bigger because I really don't mind stitching up this lining later. As we all know, Cuddle is easy to hide things in later. So I'm just going to unpick this little bit here to make it bigger to go through. And I can just get this to go under. I've got some green thread. I can stitch it right up. It's not going to be a problem at all. And it's the lining, so nobody's going to see anyway, right? I did a nice L bracket there, so now it's not wanting to come undone. But here we go. I like you guys seeing when, you know, we've got to do things like this, because if you're ever challenged at home to figure out, well, what do I do now? I messed up. I did something weird. Well, how do I fix it? It can always be fixed later. All right, so now we're getting this through. That was a much bigger opening, and actually it's probably the size of the opening that the back pocket would have been. So cheers to the real pattern and following the instructions. Don't be like me. All right, so here we're starting to see all the straps are coming through. Let's just hope this is really going to work. Oh my goodness, you guys, it worked. Okay, so just kind of, I can go back in here later with a point turner and really get everything to look nice. I can go back inside and trim up some seams to make it super sharp looking. But we've been on here a long time, so I'm just going to talk about very quickly how we finish this. I personally would go in and I would probably clean up some of these seam allowances and trim it up so there's not as much bulk. See this bulk in here? It's also why I don't like to do the binding method, because inside of this on the inside, there would be binding, and it would be bulky with Cuddle. So here I just can go in and trim those seam allowances, and it's not going to be as bulky. But don't forget, we have this pocket here that was the lining inside front pocket. All we do here is I would pin or clip this together, and I would use green thread, and I would just do a straight stitch across. And then you tuck it back in, and it's your perfect little pocket. The hole that we made to turn the backing through, same thing. I will just tuck this under, and you could either hand stitch, but I would just take green thread and make sure the seam allowance is all tucked in and stitch it together. Now, by doing it this way through this hole and not doing it through the pocket, the way we did the front through the pocket, this backing here is not actually stitched to this backing the way this whole front piece is stitched. And what that means is this is not attached in here quite as nicely. So, as you're using it, it can slip out. I don't find that really happens. You could also tack it in place if you wanted to. But if we had done this the correct way, the way that they had you do it, this whole back edge here would be nice and clipped together like this. So I really like the way they designed it. I like the way they have you do it. I just didn't want to have to put in that back pocket. So again, here's the backing. It all looks pretty nice here. I would just put some more rivets on. I put some rivets up here too. I actually might put them into the backing through to the back through there, because then that will hold that layer together. But you can just do anything you want here. You can make it your own. I love how this turned out. I think it's going to be so cute to wear as like a little purse. We have our zippers. But let me just go back up to our main view here. Thanks for hanging in. I know this was a super long one today. Well, I mean, we've done it for 2 days, right? You guys have been with me for 2 now. So yeah, I think this turned out super cute. I love it. I think it's worth doing the little mini size because it's just a cute little purse backpack. Great for travel. Sorry, these zippers are jingling a bunch, so I'm sure that's annoying on camera. But I love how it turned out. You got to make your own.
So pretty.
Make the big version. I mean, you guys, look at this Cuddle. Look at this. I mean, it's gorgeous. How could I not have picked this one? And we have so many beautiful prints like this. I've done this with C3, but this Quilting Cuddle, it just is easier. I know you saw me struggling a little bit today, but it's really just the smallness of this bag. The bigger one would be a breeze, and it's not the thickness of the Cuddle. The Quilting Cuddle has been no problem at all. It's just layers. You go slow when you make bags because you've got all those multiple layers and all the details. So we're going to pick some winners. I don't know if Ginger's already picked the winners, but I'm very excited for them today. Okay, let's see if I can get closer here. We have, oh, I don't see any winners. Oh no, they're on the end. Today's winners are Debbie Hanchett, Cassandra Dalton, and Leah Hughes. So what you're going to do is you're going to email Shannon Fabrics. So you email info@shannonfabrics.com. You do name, shipping info, and phone number. The other thing is you are going to want to sign up at Little Lizard King. We can send you the information for that to get an account over there. You just sign up for an account. It's no big deal, free, super easy. And then once your account is in there, she'll have your email. I'll send her your email, and your account will just get that $50 credit right in it, and you can get whatever purchases you want over there. If you're not sure what kind of patterns that she has that might work with Cuddle, feel free to PM me. You can also make a comment out on this thread. I'd be happy to list some of her patterns that work great with Cuddle, other than obviously this Veda backpack, of course. But she's got some other clothing patterns and some things like that that would work well, especially with the new Marshmallow Cuddle. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Thank you for sticking with this long post, but I just didn't want to cut anything out because I think all of it is super helpful for you to see, even the parts where I went rogue. So thank you for being with me today. I will see you next time. We will be back soon with another Cuddle showcase. We've got more Sew Togethers coming, and then Sheila and I always have our Cuddle conversations that third week of the month on a Tuesday. So we will see you then. Happy sewing.